Kotaro was a high school student who decided to live on his own and move into a boarding house. He and Kenji had been close friends ever since they were in grade school. The owner of the boarding house was a girl named Shizuoka, who was the same age as Kotaro. That day, Kotaro moved into room 106 of Corona House. The rent was incredibly cheap, only 5,000 yen. That night, Kotaro's father called to check on him. He had recently been transferred to a new workplace and was still adjusting to his new environment. Kotaro thought it would actually be a good opportunity for his father to find a kind woman and start a happier life. After ending the call, Kotaro turned off the lights and quickly fell asleep. He slept so soundly that even the strange shaking inside his room did not wake him up at all. The next morning, Kotaro went to his part-time job. Kenji was surprised that Kotaro did not take the day off since he had just moved into a new place. Kotaro explained that he needed to save money during spring break. Kenji wondered why he bothered working so hard when his father still gave him an allowance, but Kotaro wanted to avoid relying on that money. That was the reason he went through so much trouble to find such a cheap place to stay. Kenji then asked whether Kotaro was worried about the ghost rumors surrounding the boarding house. Kotaro admitted that he had not seen any ghosts at all the previous night, and even if one really appeared, he had no intention of giving up such an affordable room. Not long after that, Kotaro was asked to head over to Site B because they were short on workers there. As he walked toward the site, he suddenly heard a girl calling his name. He looked around, trying to find where the voice was coming from, but there was nobody there. He assumed he had probably imagined it. A moment later, Kotaro suddenly fell into a deep hole. At the bottom of the hole, he found a statue of a woman. The mysterious voice told him that she had been waiting for him for an unimaginably long time, through countless days and nights. The statue then transformed into an incredibly beautiful girl who looked overjoyed to finally meet him. Their hands reached toward each other, but the moment felt distant and unreal. At that very moment, Kotaro was actually lying in a hospital bed with a head injury. Kenji, who was staying beside him, explained how he ended up there after collapsing at work from hitting his head. The next day, while heading to school, Kotaro still felt pain in his head. Shizuoka asked him what had happened to cause the injury. Kenji explained that Kotaro had fainted at work after hurting himself. Shizuoka worriedly asked whether he was really okay. At the same time, a girl was secretly watching them from the top of a tree, but the branch suddenly snapped and caused her to fall. Shizuoka reminded Kotaro not to do reckless things that would make people worry about him. Since he was staying at her boarding house, she spoke to him very politely, but Kotaro asked her not to be so formal because they were classmates after all. After school, Shizuoka asked Kotaro what he planned to do later that day. He replied that he still had something important to take care of. Kenji immediately teased him, assuming he wanted to spend time alone with the beautiful class representative. Kotaro could not understand why Kenji always assumed that guys only cared about chasing after pretty girls. He quickly left before the teasing continued any further. Kenji then told Shizuoka that Kotaro had joined the knitting club. Shizuoka was surprised that he had already chosen a club so quickly. Apparently, Kotaro had been invited during the new student orientation announcement and decided to join right away. Kenji had honestly expected him to continue playing baseball instead. When Kotaro arrived at the clubroom, he saw a beautiful girl quietly reading a book. She smiled warmly at him and said that she had been waiting for him. Her name was Harumi, the president of the knitting club. Kotaro sincerely thanked her for welcoming him so kindly. As he tried to bow politely, pain suddenly shot through his body. Harumi immediately became concerned and asked what had happened to him. Kotaro explained everything, and Harumi realized that he was the same person she had seen at the hospital the previous day. Harumi explained that she often visited the hospital because she had been physically weak ever since she was little, so she regularly went in for checkups. Kotaro told her not to hesitate to greet him whenever they met, especially now that he had officially joined the knitting club. Harumi then asked if he was truly sure about joining the knitting club, since someone like him would normally choose a sports club that seemed more exciting. Kotaro answered that there was something important he needed to do, and because of that, he needed to learn how to knit. Kotaro admitted that he was not good at knitting and did not even know how long it had taken him to finish his project. Harumi smiled and accepted his registration form, then explained that their activities would begin the next day. Somewhere else, a girl was watching Kotaro through a monitor. Kotaro returned to his boarding house. When he entered his room, he found a girl already inside. It turned out that she was the one who had been bothering him the previous night, although he had not realized it at the time. The girl's name was Sanae, and she was the ghost haunting Kotaro's boarding house. Kotaro looked confused and asked what she was doing in his room. Sanae was shocked that Kotaro could actually see her. Kotaro wondered how she had managed to get into his room in the first place. Sanae seemed equally confused. Kotaro suddenly grabbed Sanae, making her even more surprised that he could touch her as well. He then tossed Sanae out of his room. Kotaro genuinely could not understand how Sanae had entered his room when he had already locked the windows. Suddenly, Sanae appeared again and angrily complained to him. Kotaro was startled and a little frightened when he saw Sanae pass right through the door. That reaction was exactly what Sanae had been hoping for, but she was still puzzled that Kotaro could casually talk with her. Kotaro asked what kind of being Sanae actually was. Sanae introduced herself as the ghost who lived in the boarding house. Kotaro asked why a ghost would suddenly come after him. Sanae explained that the place was her home and demanded that Kotaro leave immediately. Kotaro replied that he had searched very hard to find a place like that, so he was not about to let Sanae take it away from him so easily. Annoyed, Sanae used her powers to attack Kotaro. Her attacks came one after another while Kotaro desperately tried to dodge them. Eventually, Sanae started throwing objects around the room at him. Kotaro scolded her, saying that someone could get seriously hurt if those objects hit his head, but Sanae admitted that forcing him out was exactly her goal. She then unleashed an even stronger burst of power. Fortunately, Kotaro used protective charms to block Sanae's attack. He even had a large collection of charms that his grandmother had given him. Frustrated, Sanae once again demanded that Kotaro leave the boarding house, arguing that she had lived there first. Unfortunately for her, Kotaro refused. The two of them were about to continue their argument when suddenly a girl riding a broom crashed through Kotaro's window. The girl looked hurt and close to tears. Kotaro asked who she was. Nervously, she introduced herself as Eureka, the magical rainbow girl and the princess of love and courage who protected the peace of the city. Kotaro wondered if Eureka was just a cosplayer. Eureka quickly denied it. Eureka apologized for accidentally breaking the window and admitted that she did not have the money to pay for the damage. Kotaro asked why she had been in such a hurry. Eureka explained that the room was in danger because everyone had gathered there at the same time, creating a massive concentration of magical power. If it continued, an evil magical girl might take advantage of that power. Because of that, she begged Kotaro and Sanae to leave the room immediately. Right after saying all of that, Eureka ended up being thrown back outside by Kotaro. From outside the room, Eureka apologized again and begged him to open the door. Kotaro told her to hold her cosplay event somewhere else. Sanae added that she and Kotaro were busy at the moment. Eureka tearfully explained that she was not comfortable wearing such revealing clothes, but the elders had told her to wear them proudly. She hoped the two of them would believe her story. Eventually, Kotaro and Sanae allowed Eureka back into the room so they could talk properly. Eureka asked whether they believed that she was truly a magical girl. In reality, both Kotaro and Sanae still had their doubts. Eureka continued hoping that they would trust her. Suddenly, two strange creatures named Kurama and Kurama appeared, shocking everyone in the room. Then, a woman emerged from below the floor and apologized for startling them. Her name was Kireha. She introduced herself as a descendant of the ancient people of Earth and a member of the Kurano clan, experts in fortune-telling and spiritual arts. Ordinary people referred to her people as the underground inhabitants. Kireha explained that her people had moved underground centuries ago. Recently, she had discovered the location of the most important shrine for the underground people, and it just happened to be located in that very room. Kireha politely asked whether Kotaro would be willing to give them the room so they could rebuild the shrine. Sanae wondered why Kotaro treated Kireha so differently compared to the way he treated her. Kotaro explained that Kireha was polite, unlike Sanae. Meanwhile, Kotaro shouted at Eureka, who was running around with Kurama and Kurama. Eureka quickly apologized. Unexpectedly, Kireha even offered Kotaro gold bars if he agreed to leave the room. Sanae and Eureka immediately opposed the idea of giving the room to Kireha. Kotaro responded calmly. Sanae was shocked that Kotaro suddenly seemed so tempted by the offer. Kotaro explained that he had no intention of selling the room, but since Kireha had approached him respectfully, he felt that he should at least consider her proposal. Kireha was pleased, and because of that, she could continue with her next goal, which was invading the surface world. Kotaro was shocked when he heard that. Kireha explained that if they could activate the shrine and gather a large amount of life energy, they would be able to create many ether weapons. Kotaro strongly objected to what Kireha said. Sanae wondered why Kireha intended to invade the surface world in the first place. Kireha admitted that she would treat Kotaro as an honored guest. Unfortunately, Kotaro did not agree with that idea and he refused to give up his room. Sanae also rejected it, and even Eureka was against the plan. Suddenly, Kireha tried to flirt with Kotaro by leaning closely against his arm. Kotaro's face turned red, and he said that tricks like that would never work on him. Kireha quietly teased him, saying that she had survived underground for thousands of years while wondering how long Kotaro could keep enduring the situation himself. Sanae became irritated because they were acting inappropriately in her room. Out of nowhere, a magic circle appeared on the wall. Kotaro hoped that another strange creature would not appear again, but a girl named Taya Malaise suddenly emerged, crashing directly into him. Taya Malaise immediately called Kotaro a shameless pervert. In the confusion, Kotaro accidentally grabbed her chest. Taya Malaise became furious and scolded him. Kotaro quickly explained that it had been a complete accident. He even said that he could barely tell whether he had touched her or not because everything happened so quickly. Taya Malaise grew even more annoyed after hearing his excuse. Sanae commented that the only chest someone could clearly notice would probably belong to Kureha. Tayamiles laughed and called them all a doomed species. She activated a device she referred to as the Blue Knight in order to prepare her weapon. Kurama and Kurama immediately got ready to block the attack. Once the attack was launched, the vibrations were incredibly powerful, and even Kurama and Kurama's magic circles could not withstand it. Kotaro then used a baseball bat to strike back, but Tayamiles possessed a protective barrier that prevented anyone from even touching her. Suddenly, Sanae appeared from behind and startled Tayamiles, causing her to lose her composure for a moment. Kotaro praised Sanae's quick thinking. They were surprised to notice that Tayamiles had underwear decorated with bear patterns. Sanae demanded that she surrender, but Tayamiles refused. She proudly declared that she was a princess of the Holy Fourth Order Galactic Empire. Tayamiles then ordered the Blue Knight to prepare a massive blast from the Genesis Buster. Kurama and Kurama detected an enormous source of power above them. Kureha opened the window and saw the giant attack approaching. The attack resembled an antimatter cannon. Everyone became worried that the strike could destroy everything around them. Kotaro begged Tayamiles to stop the blast, but she instead planned to continue firing repeatedly. At that moment, a woman named Ruth Kania arrived to stop her and explained that destroying a planet would violate the Galactic War Treaty. Tayamiles complained that everyone had been making fun of her appearance. Ruth Kania reminded her that her mission was to protect all forms of life within those coordinates. If Tayamiles destroyed the planet, she would be considered a failure and would bring shame upon the queen herself. After hearing that, Tayamiles finally deactivated the attack. Not long afterward, Shizuka arrived and asked what had happened there. She was shocked by the condition of the room. Shizuka became furious because the place had been completely wrecked. She harshly scolded everyone for the chaos they had caused. Shizuka warned them that they would regret it if they continued damaging the property or disturbing other people. They all gathered together and explained everything to Shizuka. She understood that everyone was fighting over the room. Even though their stories sounded difficult to believe, Shizuka decided she had no choice but to accept it. As the landlord, Shizuka declared that she wanted to settle the issue peacefully. She then asked everyone to sign an agreement. Once the contract was finalized, anyone who broke the rules would face consequences. Kotaro did not care about the others. The only thing that mattered to him was that he would never hand over his room to anyone. Ruth Kania, acting as Tayamiles' maid, explained that at the time, Tayamiles was taking an exam to become the heir to the Fordort Kingdom. The test worked by selecting random coordinates through a computer. Tayamiles' task was to turn the selected location into part of her kingdom. If she discovered intelligent life forms within those coordinates, she was expected to bring them under her rule. That was the mission assigned to her. After everyone learned the reason behind it, Tayamiles immediately ordered Kotaro to swear loyalty to her and hand over authority of the room right away. Kotaro refused without hesitation, saying that he was not going to give up his cheap apartment that easily. Sanae pointed out that she had been staying there for a very long time already. Kureha also revealed that she planned to build a shrine dedicated to her ancestors in that place. Tayamiles called all of them selfish. Eureka warned everyone that evil magicians would eventually do everything they could to seize the enormous magical power hidden there. Even so, Kotaro still assumed Eureka simply wanted to hold a cosplay party in the room. Sanae wondered why Eureka specifically chose that place instead of somewhere else. Eureka hoped that everyone would finally believe what she was saying. Kureha reminded them that Shizuka had forbidden any kind of violence, so they needed to settle things another way. Everyone started thinking about how to compete without fighting. Kotaro then suggested deciding everything through card games instead. Kureha explained the rules inside the room. The 5 of them each controlled one section out of 6 areas in the room. Altogether, the 6 sections were worth 180 points, meaning every centimeter represented 1 point of territory. Tayamiles asked if that meant they would compete for points through card games. Kureha explained that the winner would take points from the loser, which symbolized expanding territory. The first place winner would gain 3 points from the last place player. The second place winner would gain 1 point from the second to last player, while the third place player would neither gain nor lose points. Anyone who lost all their points would have to leave the room. The games would be played 5 times a day. Since everyone controlled their own territory, each person was allowed to choose one game they liked. Kotaro thought the rules were fair because everyone had different strengths. Eureka confidently said that Kureha and Tayamiles had never played cards before, so defeating them would be easy for her. The games finally began, but in the end, Eureka lost after facing Kotaro in the final match. Tayamiles finished in second place and demanded points from Kotaro. Kotaro became annoyed because Tayamiles was acting overly proud despite only placing second. He teasingly called her Tulip, a nickname Tayamiles absolutely hated. At the end of the day's matches, the results showed that Eureka was the only one who lost points. She could not understand how things turned out that way, and she was so distracted that she accidentally ruined her ramen dinner. Meanwhile, Tay Malaise quietly whispered to Ruth Kania that Kireha seemed to be the most skilled card player among them. Ruth Kania replied that Kireha was probably fearless when taking risks and somehow always drew great cards. After finishing the games, everyone returned to their own spaces and prepared to sleep. Suddenly, Eureka climbed into the closet shelf area so she could stay there for the night. Kotaro then encouraged Sanae to get some rest as well. At the same time, Kurama and Kurama were thrilled because Kireha had become the winner of the day's games. The next morning, Kotaro shouted in panic after waking up late. Sanae explained that she had tried shaking him awake several times, but he would not respond. Kotaro asked if she had really been trying to wake him up earlier, and Sanae became embarrassed about admitting it. Kotaro thanked her sincerely, making Sanae blush, though she tried to act casual about it. Before leaving the apartment, Kotaro asked Sanae to keep an eye on everyone while he was away. He also reminded her to make sure nobody caused trouble or did anything strange. Sanae smiled warmly and told Kotaro to be careful on his way out. Kenji was already waiting for him outside, and the two of them headed off together. After they left, Sanae realized she had naturally told Kotaro to stay safe, which surprised even her. That day, Kotaro spent time knitting in the club room. Harumi arrived carrying drinks and told him to pull the thread to the right before finishing the stitch. Kotaro immediately realized that was why his knitting had felt strange earlier. Harumi said it was completely normal to make mistakes while learning. She also told Kotaro not to feel awkward around her. Kotaro quickly drank the tea Harumi had prepared, and he was surprised by how delicious it tasted. From up in a tree, Eureka secretly watched them. She felt incredibly jealous seeing how much Kotaro trusted Harumi. Suddenly, a caterpillar hanging from the tree startled Eureka, causing her to lose balance and fall to the ground. Later that day, Kotaro and Shizuka were walking behind the school together. Kotaro asked whether Shizuka wanted to join the cooking club. Shizuka still had not made a decision because she was busy taking care of the tenants at the apartment. Kotaro commented that Shizuka must really be amazing if someone was keeping such a close watch on her like that. Meanwhile, Tay Malaise and Ruth Kanea were keeping an eye on Kotaro. Tay Malaise wished Kotaro would simply submit to her and become loyal to her without resistance. Ruth Kanea explained that loyalty could never be built overnight. According to her, true loyalty was something that developed after spending a long time together. After hearing that, Tay Malaise quietly started planning something. Later in class, Kenji approached Kotaro and asked why he had not gone to the clubroom that day. Kotaro explained that Harome was busy, so the club activities were cancelled. Kenji wondered why Kotaro did not just head home instead. Kotaro admitted that he had been thinking about all the chaos constantly happening at his apartment. Kenji had no idea what Kotaro was talking about, while Kotaro simply said that he wanted to relax at school for a little while. At the same time, Kiriha was secretly observing Kotaro as well. She smiled after hearing a report from Kurama and Kurama. When Kotaro arrived back at the apartment, he was surprised by Kiriha's appearance. Kiriha greeted him warmly and mentioned that she had been using the kitchen. She intentionally prepared a meal as a friendly gesture toward him, and she even said she did not mind if he ended up owing her a favor. In return, Kotaro agreed to help provide the ingredients for future meals. Kiriha looked delighted after hearing that. She grabbed Kotaro's arm and eagerly invited him to eat right away. Sanae noticed the situation and said that she wanted to eat too. Kiriha had also cooked for Ruth Kania and Tay Malaise as part of the agreement she made with them. Kotaro and the others then prepared to eat together. Seeing the large amount of food on the table, Sanae begged Kotaro to let her possess him for a while. Since she was a ghost, she could not eat normally, but she could experience food through someone else's body. Kotaro wondered why Sanae specifically chose him. Sanae admitted that she did not want to owe anyone else a favor. She pleaded with him again, explaining that it had been a very long time since she had last tasted food. Eventually, Kotaro allowed Sanae to possess him. At that moment, Sanae clung to Kotaro's back and wrapped her arms around him from behind. Kotaro asked if that was really all it took for possession to happen. Everyone was surprised by how simple and practical the process seemed, especially since none of them truly understood how ghosts worked in the first place. Ruth Kania then asked about Eureka. Kotaro assumed Eureka already had her own food, but Eureka sadly showed everyone her ruined instant ramen instead. Ruth Kania kindly offered to share some of her food. Sanae immediately protested and told Ruth Kania not to spoil Eureka too much. Kotaro pointed out that it was Eureka's own fault for ruining her meal, while Kareha added that Eureka had not helped with the cooking either. Eureka tearfully admitted that she had been hungry the entire time. Feeling sorry for her, Kotaro generously shared some of his food. In the end, everyone enjoyed the meal together. Sanae was especially happy because it had been so long since she last experienced eating. Kotaro openly praised Kiriha's cooking, saying it tasted amazing. Kiriha looked pleased after hearing everyone compliment her. Meanwhile, Tay Malaise continued eating and admitted that the food was actually pretty good, even if it was still different from the cuisine in Fortuna. Kotaro pointed out that Tayamilaze made too many comments when she could have simply admitted the food was delicious from the beginning. Tayamilaze became irritated because Kotaro kept calling her Tulip. Nearby, Eureka looked disappointed because she only received potatoes when she had really wanted meat instead. That day, the card game started up again. Kotaro became the first winner and quickly headed to the bathroom afterward. During that moment, Tayamilaze became convinced that Kireha must have been planning something after preparing dinner and calming the atmosphere. However, Kireha suspected that Tayamilaze also had her own plans. Sanae wondered what the two of them were truly trying to achieve. Kireha and Tayamilaze exchanged intense stares with one another. The next day, Kotaro was shocked by the arrival of several transfer students in his class. The transfer students turned out to be Eureka, Kireha, Tayamilaze, and Ruth Kania. Their teacher hoped that everyone would get along together. Kotaro could hardly believe what they had done. Sanae claimed that she had already tried to stop them because things had gone too far. Kotaro became annoyed and complained about how they had now decided to invade his school as well. The girls in class admired Kireha's beauty, and Kireha politely thanked them for their compliments. They mentioned that several boys had been staring at her constantly and warned her to be careful around disrespectful guys at school. Kireha responded with a sweet smile and promised that she would stay careful. Kotaro felt exhausted just looking at Kireha's perfectly polite smile, while Sanae commented that Kireha looked exactly like an honor student. The classmates also praised Ruth Kania and Tayamilaze for speaking Japanese so fluently even though they came from Europe. Ruth Kania explained that they had worked very hard to learn the language. The students became curious about what attracted Tayamilaze to Japan in the first place. It turned out that she enjoyed traditional Japanese music, especially the song that became famous during last year's Fire Drum Festival. Kotaro complained that Tayamilaze always spoke as if she knew everything even though most of her knowledge simply came from information she had already gathered beforehand. Meanwhile, Sanae concluded that all of the transfer students were definitely strange. At that time, Eureka was being punished by having to copy an entire book because of her poor grades. Everyone encouraged her to keep going. Kotaro and Sanae were already used to Eureka's usual behavior, so none of it surprised them anymore. Kotaro wondered why they had come to a place that was supposed to help him relax. According to Sanae, it looked like they were trying to pressure Kotaro. After hearing that, Kotaro started thinking that maybe it was time for him to play a little dirty. During break time, Ruth Kania and Tayamilaze were about to head to the cafeteria. Tayamilaze was excited about eating the delicious croquettes there. Suddenly, a group of students stopped them and complained that they were interfering with their sacred practice session. Ruth Kania politely apologized, but Tayamilaze looked ready to argue back. Before things could escalate, one of their classmates stepped in to apologize on their behalf and explained that Ruth Kania and Tayamilaze were transfer students who had only recently joined the school. Their classmate quickly pulled Tayamilaze away and warned them that the boys' cheerleading club had a reputation for causing trouble and would not easily back down from anyone who challenged them. Later, Eureka received a letter from Kotaro asking her to come to the club building. She could hardly believe that Kotaro had finally accepted her as the Rainbow Heart Magician girl she claimed to be. Her face turned bright red and she became so excited that she accidentally twisted her ankle and fell over. Just then, Harumi arrived and asked if she was okay. Eureka was surprised that someone actually wanted to help her, and she became so energetic and cheerful that Harumi quickly became convinced she was perfectly fine. Eureka then asked where the club building was located. Harumi kindly pointed her in the right direction, and after thanking her, Eureka happily ran off toward the building. Watching her leave, Harumi commented that Eureka was a pretty funny girl. As soon as Eureka arrived, she called out for Kotaro. However, instead of Kotaro, several girls from her class showed up. They explained that Kotaro had told them Eureka absolutely loved cosplay, which meant she would fit right in with them. They turned out to be members of the cosplay fan club. Eureka awkwardly admitted that she was not actually that interested in cosplay, but the girls assumed she was simply shy. Without wasting any time, they happily dragged Eureka along with them. It turned out that Kotaro had planned the whole thing from the beginning. After school, Kotaro walked home together with Sanae. He felt sure that Eureka would finally give up after the prank he pulled on her. Sanae commented that Kotaro was surprisingly talented when it came to tricking people. However, Kotaro insisted that he did it for Eureka's sake. He believed that if Eureka could pour all her energy into the cosplay group, then she would stop bothering him back at the apartment. Meanwhile, Kireha was looking at the school bulletin board when Kurama and Kurama approached her. Kireha immediately told them to stay disguised. It turned out that she had become interested in the obstacle relay race competition. That night, Kotaro and the others gathered once again to play cards together. Eureka looked completely exhausted and was so tired that she did not even realize it was already her turn to draw a card. Surprisingly, Eureka ended up winning again that night. She had already won 3 rounds in a row, and it seemed like she was somehow getting even stronger. Sanae could not understand why the exhausted Eureka was performing better than ever, and she started to think Kotaro's cosplay plan had completely failed. Taya Malaise admitted that she was exhausted and barely felt motivated to continue playing cards. Kotaro agreed with her for once. Taya Malaise proudly assumed that Kotaro had finally realized his loyalty should belong to her, but Kotaro immediately rejected the idea without hesitation. Kiraiha noticed that sooner or later, everyone's exhaustion would catch up with them, so she decided it was finally her turn to choose the next competition. She suggested that they all participate in the obstacle relay race. Taya Malaise declared that this way they could compete fairly and honorably with the entire school as their witness, and she agreed to the challenge enthusiastically. Kotaro never expected them to challenge his stamina directly, but he accepted the challenge anyway. One day, Kotaro met Harumi and told her that he only wanted her and no one else. Harumi's face immediately turned red because Kotaro's words sounded like a love confession. However, it turned out that Kotaro was only asking Harumi to join the obstacle relay marathon with him. Harumi realized that she had simply misunderstood him. The competition required 2 people on each team. Harumi felt that she probably would not be much help. Kotaro already knew that Harumi had a weak body, but he told her not to worry because only the best result between the 2 teammates would count as the final score. That meant Harumi could stop shortly after the race started if she felt exhausted. Kotaro gently held Harumi's hand and sincerely asked for her help because he absolutely had to participate in the competition and win. He truly hoped Harumi would agree to support him. Harumi understood his feelings and decided to join him. Kotaro happily thanked her. Even though Harumi wanted to stay in the race until the very end, Kotaro reminded her not to push herself too hard. Meanwhile, Sanae was nearby secretly listening to their conversation. At the same time, Yorika was being measured by the members of the cosplay club after she mentioned wanting to participate in the obstacle relay race. The cosplay club president explained that they needed her measurements to prepare a costume for the event. After school, Sanae asked whether Kotaro was planning to train with Harumi. Kotaro said that he needed to stretch before the competition, then asked how Sanae's own preparations were going. Earlier, Kiraiha had allowed Sanae to choose who would represent her in the event. Naturally, Sanae chose Kotaro because she believed he was excellent in physical activities, especially while they were still under a temporary truce. Kotaro jokingly told Sanae not to regret her choice if he ended up losing. Sanae said she believed in him, but she also warned him to be careful around Kiraiha and Taya Malaise. Kotaro wondered how those two had already decided on their teams so quickly. At that moment, Kiraiha was practicing on the athletic field. Her training times were impressive and her friends were convinced that she would win the competition. Kiraiha herself felt that her preparations were going smoothly. She then asked Kurama and Kurama to investigate which pair from the track club was the strongest. Kiraiha had intentionally chosen a partner from the track club to increase her chances of victory. Meanwhile, Taya Malaise had successfully gained the loyalty of the male cheerleading club. They even addressed her as princess. Not long afterward, Ruth Konia contacted Taya Malaise and reported that she had detected 2 unidentified flying objects above the school grounds. The objects were hiding themselves using thermal electromagnetic camouflage and appeared to be spying on the area. Ruth Konia suspected they were probably Kiraiha's Haniwa dolls. After hearing the report, Taya Malaise ordered the Blue Knight to launch unmanned fighters against the suspicious flying objects. Ruth Konia reminded her that the written agreement prohibited direct conflict with Kiraiha. However, Taya Malaise argued that the objects could still belong to another group attempting to attack them. The unmanned fighters immediately launched their attack toward Kurama and Kurama. Fortunately, the 2 of them successfully protected themselves with shield barriers. They quickly counterattacked, and an intense aerial battle continued above the school grounds. Meanwhile, Harumi was practicing stretching exercises. Kotaro lightly tapped her and encouraged her to push herself just a little more. He carefully helped support her back while she stretched. Sanae watched the 2 of them from a distance. Soon after, Taya Malaise approached Sanae and asked who the girl beside Kotaro was. Sanae explained that the girl was Harumi, the president of the knitting club. According to Sanae, Harumi could practically be considered Kotaro's princess. Hearing that immediately irritated Taya Malaise because she believed she was far superior to Harumi. Kiraiha, who was also nearby, simply smiled and said that feelings like that could not always be explained logically. Taya Malaise did not understand what Kiraiha meant. Kiraiha then questioned what kind of logic Taya Malaise had used to justify attacking her. Taya Malaise replied that she had merely targeted 2 suspicious flying objects spying around the school grounds. Eventually, Kurama and Kurama succeeded in destroying the unmanned fighters, although they were left completely exhausted afterward. On the day of the competition, students gathered together to watch the event. The obstacle relay race featured all kinds of athletes and unusual clubs. Every club seemed eager to participate. There were 10 obstacles waiting for the contestants throughout the race. Some of the challenges required intelligence and strategy, so physical strength alone would not guarantee victory. Kiraiha asked Kotaro how he was feeling before the event began. Kotaro confidently said that he felt great and believed nobody would be able to defeat him. Kireha felt the same way and was equally certain that she would win. Soon after, Taya Miles arrived alongside the male cheerleading club, escorting her. She proudly declared that she would be the ultimate winner of the competition. The three of them exchanged intense looks with one another. At that moment, Sanae quietly felt that everyone seemed to have forgotten someone important. Right then, Yorika was escorted into the competition arena by members of the cosplay club. Kotaro walked over to Harumi and asked how she was doing. Harumi told him not to worry about her because she was determined to stay in the competition until the very end. The participants gathered at the starting line, and the moment the starting shot echoed through the field, everyone sprinted forward as fast as they could. The pair from the track club took the lead early in the race. However, once they got farther ahead, several people behind them suddenly fell down at the same time. Taya Miles was convinced that Kireha had something to do with it. One of the cheer squad members then ran while carrying Taya Miles on her back. Kotaro became extremely annoyed by the incident. He lifted Harumi into his arms and continued the race with her. He leaped over the crowd of fallen participants in front of him and tried to create as much distance as possible from the others. Kenji and Shizuoka could hardly believe that Kotaro had managed to pass them. Everyone who had fallen near the starting line eventually got back up and continued the race, except for Yorika, whose outfit had been torn during the chaos. Meanwhile, Kotaro faced a fairly difficult math problem. Sanae wanted to help him, but he refused because he did not want to cheat. At that moment, Harumi had already solved the problem, and Kotaro told her to go on ahead without him. Harumi hesitated, but Kotaro insisted that she should not waste time if she truly wanted to finish the race. Before long, Kotaro managed to overtake Taya Miles. He was certain that the previous obstacle had slowed down the impatient princess. Taya Miles became irritated and called Kotaro a foolish servant who only knew how to rely on athletic ability. Soon after, they arrived at the fourth obstacle, an eating challenge involving red bean bread. Kotaro ate the bread so quickly that Taya Miles commented that he looked as if he had not eaten in days. Kotaro checked on Harumi again and asked whether she was alright. Harumi admitted that she was not good at eating quickly, and she encouraged Kotaro not to worry about her because he needed to win the race. Kotaro immediately continued running. Taya Miles hurriedly finished her bread so she could catch up with him. The next obstacle involved reading difficult kanji characters. Kotaro made several mistakes while trying to read them, and before long, Kenji and Shizuoka overtook him. Kotaro became deeply frustrated. At the same time, Harumi was still able to keep running, though she quietly hoped her strength would last until the end. Yorika looked exhausted, and it seemed almost impossible for her to continue running in her damaged clothes. She wanted to stop and give up, but Harumi suddenly appeared beside her, reached out her hand, and encouraged her not to quit. Yorika said that she would never win anyway, and that nobody ever noticed or acknowledged her efforts. Harumi gently told her that giving up there would only mean losing to herself. She encouraged Yorika and said that she believed Yorika could do it. Touched by Harumi's kindness, Yorika decided to continue the race. The two of them introduced themselves to each other and kept running together. Meanwhile, Kireha still held first place while Kurama and Kurama continued cheering her on. The next obstacle required participants to cross narrow board pathways. Kurama suggested taking the wider route, while Kurama recommended the shorter one. With no time to think carefully, Kireha quickly chose the path she would take. At the same time, Taya Miles and Kotaro were running side by side while constantly trading insults. Sanae found their behavior strange because they could have run much faster if they stopped arguing. When they reached the board pathway obstacle, Kotaro immediately chose the shorter route, while Taya Miles waited for her race partner so she could be carried across. Kotaro was surprised by how easy her strategy was. Taya Miles proudly declared that there was no need for her to rush because she was a princess. Sanae became suspicious and felt certain that Taya Miles was planning something. Each pathway contained different kinds of obstacles, but the route chosen by Taya Miles appeared completely straight and free of hazards. Meanwhile, 3 students from the rugby club, sumo club, and judo club arrived at the obstacle area. They were searching for the person who had stepped on them near the starting line earlier, and all they remembered was that the person had been carrying a girl. They mistakenly assumed that Kenji was the culprit because he had been together with Shizuoka at the time. Kotaro quietly felt relieved that they had not recognized him instead. The 3 students approached Kenji and shoved him. One of the sumo club members lost his balance and accidentally triggered a hidden surprise device. A loud explosion suddenly rang out, shocking everyone nearby. Kotaro immediately suspected that Taya Miles was responsible for it somehow. Taya Miles casually remarked that the device looked similar to harmless surprise bombs used in her homeland. Kireha and Shizuoka became more cautious, realizing they needed to stay alert. At that moment, the students noticed that the route used by Taya Miles appeared safe, so many of them rushed toward it together. However, as they got closer, Taya Miles' race partner pushed them away, causing them to stumble, and more surprise devices suddenly went off. Someone managed to knock Taya Miles off the pathway, and multiple explosions echoed one after another across the course. Meanwhile, Harumi and Eureka continued running together. They believed that someone had probably already won the race by then, but they still kept pushing forward in order to reach the finish line. Eureka asked why Harumi continued trying so hard. Harumi explained that she was doing it for the sake of her friends. Suddenly, Harumi's body weakened, and she collapsed unconscious. Eureka panicked and had no idea what she should do next. She could only remember how kind Harumi had been to her. Eureka then transformed into the Rainbow Witch, using her magic wand and magical outfit. She tried to heal Harumi with her magic powers, but she was confused when the spell seemed to have no effect on her. Eureka remembered Harumi's words about continuing to fight no matter what, so she kept trying. Suddenly, Eureka managed to use a different kind of magic, one that did not originally belong to her, and Harumi finally began to recover. Meanwhile, Kotaro was leading the race from the front, but he looked completely exhausted. Sanae kept cheering him on and encouraging him to keep going. There was only one final obstacle left for him to face, which was borrowing an item. Sanae reminded Kotaro that the race was almost over, but before he could continue, he collapsed from exhaustion. Kireha and Tayamiles managed to pass him. Tayamiles could hardly believe that Kotaro had already given up, while Kireha confidently stated that the two of them were the only ones capable of fighting until the very end. They quickly picked up the papers for the borrowing challenge. Kireha was instructed to borrow an E-cup bra or smaller, while Tayamiles was told to borrow a D-cup bra or larger. Because of that, the two of them immediately competed against each other to complete the challenge first. At the same time, Harumi started running again. She felt much lighter than before, and Eureka explained that it was all thanks to magic. Eureka finally admitted that she was actually a magical girl of love, courage, dreams, and hope. At that very moment, both Tayamiles and Kireha collapsed after exhausting themselves during their rivalry. Not long after that, Eureka and Harumi reached the final obstacle. Harumi was instructed to bring one of her club members. Eureka told Harumi to go ahead without her because she had given up on completing that challenge. As it turned out, Eureka's own challenge was to bring a friend. Harumi told Eureka not to worry because the person she was looking for was already right there beside her. Eureka was genuinely surprised that Harumi considered her a friend. In return, Harumi asked Eureka for her help. The winners of the race ended up being the Knitting Club and the Cosplay Club. Harumi and Eureka worked together to carry the unconscious Kotaro all the way to the finish line. Kotaro could not believe that Harumi and Eureka had become the winners. Sanae pointed out that technically, Kotaro had also won. That meant the winners of the competition were Eureka, Sanae, and Kotaro, while Kireha and Tayamiles lost. Not long afterwards, someone arrived and asked who had placed traps underneath the board path. Kotaro and Kireha immediately pointed toward Tayamiles. The student quickly chased after her to confront her about it, causing Tayamiles to run away as fast as she could. Kotaro commented that Tayamiles had finally received the consequences of her actions. A little later, Kenji and the upperclassmen whom Kotaro had stepped on earlier came looking for him to settle the score. Kotaro immediately ran for his life to escape them. Sanae jokingly remarked that this was Kotaro's own punishment as well. Both Kotaro and Tayamiles ended up running desperately while being chased around the area. Meanwhile, Eureka and Harumi happily smiled as they proudly raised their trophy together. Kotaro could not believe that his bad luck had continued until the very end. At the same time, Kireha and Tayamiles lost points because of penalties, while Kotaro and Eureka gained additional points instead. One day, Kotaro and his friends stopped by a spinning ball game booth. Ruth Kania was in charge of spinning the ball, and she gave it everything she had. In the end, she actually won the game and received the grand prize, a hotel voucher for an old seaside hot spring inn by the beach. Since the voucher allowed her to bring up to 6 people, Ruth Kania invited everyone to come along. She believed there were times when Tayamiles deserved a break from her usual daily responsibilities and could simply relax for a while. Tayamiles told Ruth Kania to decide however she wanted since the prize belonged to her anyway. Ruth Kania felt happy and grateful after hearing that. Sanae became incredibly excited about going to the beach together, while Kireha saw no reason to refuse the invitation. Shizuka thanked Ruth Kania for inviting all of them, and Eureka also wanted to join because even magical girls needed a chance to relax sometimes. Tayamiles then pointed out that the prize was only meant for 6 people. Eureka immediately looked disappointed because that meant she would be left out. However, Kireha cleverly explained that the group still counted as 6 because Sanae was a ghost, so nobody besides them could see her anyway. Kurama and Kurama praised Kireha for being so clever. Sanae herself had only just realized that detail. Thanks to that logic, everyone could go together, and Eureka was extremely thankful for it. In the end, they decided to put their conflicts aside for a while and enjoy a peaceful vacation together. That day, everyone went shopping to prepare for the trip. They visited a swimsuit store filled with all kinds of different styles. Eureka immediately headed toward the discount section, while Shizuka wanted to look at the newest designs. Ruth Kania had such a hard time choosing that she could barely decide on anything. Kireha hoped they could find a swimsuit that suited Taemelis well. Taemelis eventually asked Ruth Kania to choose one for her. After trying on one swimsuit, Shizuka commented that the bikini looked too large on Taemelis. Eureka joked that flashy bikinis probably did not suit her very well, while Kireha said they simply needed to pick something that matched her better. Ruth Kania then brought over another swimsuit design that she thought might fit Taemelis nicely, but Taemelis complained that it looked too plain. Shizuka disagreed and thought the simpler design actually looked good. Eureka added that the simple style suited Taemelis much better. Kireha agreed with her, and eventually Taemelis took Ruth Kania with her to the fitting room. Meanwhile, Kotaro could not believe how serious everyone was about choosing swimsuits. He then asked Sanae why she was not picking one out too. Sanae casually explained that she already had one from a long time ago. Hearing that made Kotaro curious to see what it looked like. Sanae became excited and said she could not wait to show it off during the vacation. Later, Kotaro and the others were traveling aboard a spacecraft. Kotaro was confused about why they were using a spaceship in the first place. With a smug expression, Taemelis asked whether he was impressed. Kotaro wondered why someone who owned a spacecraft that huge still felt the need to invade his apartment. Taemelis insisted that the apartment and the spacecraft were completely different matters. Ruth Kania informed everyone that the portal was ready, and once they passed through it, they would arrive directly in front of the inn. Thanks to that, they could save a lot of travel expenses. Taemelis admitted that she mostly wanted to show off the greatness of Fordora technology. Kotaro gently patted Taemelis on the head and thanked her. Embarrassed, Taemelis quickly claimed that she had not done it because she was worried about their finances or anything like that. Kotaro lightly pressed down on her head and told her that her way of thinking had become surprisingly mature. Feeling annoyed and flustered, Taemelis kicked Kotaro straight toward the portal. When they finally arrived at the inn, everyone was shocked. The place had originally been described as slightly old-fashioned and antique, but it looked far more run-down than expected. The room they were staying in also appeared quite worn out. After checking the measurements, Kurama and Kuroma realized that the room was about the same size as room Corona. Ruth Kania immediately apologized to everyone. Kotaro assured her that none of it was her fault. Honestly, he was already grateful that they could enjoy hot springs and spend time at the beach together. Sanae then mentioned that something about the inn room felt strange. Hearing that immediately frightened both Kotaro and Eureka. Shizuka calmly told them not to worry because she had brought several ghost-repelling items that were left behind by a previous tenant from her apartment building. Kotaro grabbed a decorative sword and almost swung it towards Sanae before stopping himself. Sanae became irritated and asked whether he was seriously trying to get rid of her. Kotaro replied that he doubted something like that would even work on Sanae anyway. Instead, he pulled out a charm given to him by his grandmother and started teasing her with it. While everyone was having fun at the beach, Kotaro suddenly ran into members of the cosplay club. He asked if they were really planning to swim while wearing maid outfits like that. It turned out they were actually holding a club meeting. A huge event was coming up soon, so they needed to focus on designing the costumes they would wear. They had also invited Eureka, but she turned them down because she had something important to take care of. According to them, Eureka was a talented new member. The cosplay club president mentioned that Harumi was also at the beach because her family happened to own a vacation house nearby. She described Harumi as a smart girl from a wealthy family who was skilled at knitting, and she even wanted to recruit her into the cosplay club. Before they left, Kotaro asked them to look after Eureka if she ever ran into trouble. The club president gladly agreed. She believed that with just a little polishing, Eureka would become extremely popular, so there was no way they would let her go. Kotaro felt reassured knowing they genuinely cared about Eureka. At that moment, Harumi noticed Kotaro walking along the shore. Kotaro waited for the others under a beach umbrella. Meanwhile, many of the men at the beach could not help staring at the girls from Corona House. Sanae called out loudly to Kotaro. She proudly showed off her swimsuit and asked if her beauty had left him speechless. Taemelis wanted Kotaro to rate how charming she looked in her swimsuit. Ruth Kania acted shy about her elegant appearance while Kireha wore her swimsuit with complete confidence. Eureka could hardly believe that they had become the center of attention. Shizuka then asked Kotaro what he thought about spending time at the beach with 6 beautiful girls. Surprisingly, Kotaro's attention was focused on Harumi, who was wearing a lovely dress instead. The 6 girls became annoyed because Kotaro ignored them due to Harumi, although Harumi truly did look beautiful. Feeling frustrated, they immediately buried Kotaro in the sand. Kotaro could not understand why they would do something like that to him. Harumi suggested that maybe it was because he did not understand how the girls were feeling. When Kotaro asked Harumi to help him out, she playfully teased him instead. Kotaro was surprised to see Harumi acting mischievously like that, but Harumi simply smiled and explained that something good had happened recently, which was probably why she was in such a cheerful mood. Meanwhile, the 6 girls started playing beach volleyball together. Shizuka served the ball toward Taemelis, who received it and passed it to Ruth Kania. Eureka struggled to keep the ball in play and sent it toward Kiriha. Kiriha then passed it to Sanae, and Sanae finished with an incredible spike that caused Eureka to tumble onto the sand. Everyone applauded Sanae's impressive attack. The girls happily headed back toward the beach, but they quickly became irritated again after seeing Kotaro looking so happy while spending time with Harumi. They gathered together once more because they were upset by how close Kotaro seemed to be getting with her. Kiriha soon came up with a plan to teach Kotaro a lesson. They decided to play a watermelon splitting game. The watermelon was placed right beside Kotaro, turning the challenge into whether the player would hit the watermelon or accidentally hit Kotaro instead. Kotaro immediately panicked. Kiriha gave him a frightening smile, and Kotaro shouted in fear. At the same time, two men were watching them from afar. Just then, Tayamiles prepared to take her swing while Eureka casually enjoyed eating watermelon nearby. Harumi wondered if the game was really safe, but Eureka confidently said that Kotaro was tough enough to handle it. Tayamiles removed her blindfold after completely missing her target. Kotaro became even more annoyed with everyone afterward. Then it was Sanae's turn to play. Suddenly, Kotaro noticed two suspicious men running behind them. The men tried to grab Sanae, but they accidentally ended up grabbing Tayamiles instead. Tayamiles became furious over the way they treated her. The two men quickly claimed that they were not suspicious people and insisted that they were not interested in girls. Kiriha and Shizuoka immediately called them creeps for targeting young girls, and the two of them promptly punished the men by burying them in the sand. That night, Kotaro relaxed in the hot spring bath and felt completely refreshed. Kurama and Kurama joined him as well. Kotaro thought the day had been incredibly enjoyable, especially because he got to spend time with Harumi. Everyone else had also been having fun together. Meanwhile, the girls soaked in another bath while chatting among themselves. Tayamiles explained that she wanted to claim room 106 of Corona House in order to prove herself worthy as the heir who would protect her mother, the queen. Because of that, she had no intention of giving up. Sanae felt much the same way since she needed to wait for her parents in that room. If she was not there when they returned, they would surely be shocked. None of them could afford to back down. Eureka then explained that she needed the room because of someone who had once saved her life. She had even become a magical girl for that person. That person had been hurt while trying to protect her, so there was no way Eureka could simply give up. Even if it put her in danger, caused arguments with her family, prevented her from returning home, or left her all alone, she still believed that person had sacrificed just as much for her. Kiriha could not give up that easily either. She was fighting for the prosperity of her people, and besides that, there was still the jet coaster. When she was little, she once ran away before riding it because she had been too scared to get on. Now she believed she could finally ride it again. Everyone had their own reason for staying and fighting to claim room 106 as theirs. The competition only seemed to grow more intense, and every one of them believed they could come out on top. At that moment, Kotaro could hear his friends happily enjoying their vacation. He felt grateful that all of them had been able to come to that place together. That night, everyone slept peacefully. In the middle of the night, Kotaro, who was deeply lost in a dream, unconsciously wrapped his arms around Ruth Kaniya. Ruth Kaniya's heart raced when Kotaro held her tightly. Her face turned bright red, and she did not know how to react. Soon, she realized that Kotaro was only dreaming and had mistaken her body for a tree with a beetle resting on it. Ruth Kaniya became annoyed after realizing that Kotaro was not actually thinking about her at all. Frustrated, she smacked him hard and called him an idiot. The next morning, Kotaro apologized to Ruth Kaniya, while the girls scolded him for going too far. Kotaro pointed out to Sanae that she already knew he moved around wildly in his sleep. Sanae admitted that it was true, but she still thought hugging someone while sleeping was way too much. She complained that Kotaro seemed more interested in beetles than girls. Kotaro explained that the beetle in his dream had been gigantic, so of course he had gotten excited about catching it. According to him, catching a huge beetle was every boy's dream, and he dreamed about it every summer. Hearing that only made Ruth Kaniya more irritated because she felt Kotaro cared more about beetles than her. Upset again, she hit Kotaro once more. That night, Kotaro took a walk along the beach. He thought that if things kept going like this, he might not even be able to return to the room anymore. Suddenly, he ran into Kiriha. Kiriha asked if he was enjoying a late-night stroll, but Kotaro described it more as running away or backing down because he knew his place. He then asked about the card Kiriha was holding. Kiriha smiled, knowing that other people would probably find it strange seeing her treasure a card like that. Meanwhile, everyone else was sleeping soundly, and Sanae eventually went out to look for Kotaro after he failed to return to the room. At that moment, Kiriha explained that the card had been given to her by someone very special to her. Even after receiving it, she never saw that person again. She missed that person deeply, even though she did not know what she would do if they ever met again someday. Sanae floated outside to search for Kotaro, and soon found him together with Kiriha. Just as Kiriha and Kotaro were quietly looking at each other, Sanae suddenly appeared and startled them both. Unfortunately, she was struck by the protective charm Kotaro carried, causing her to fall. Sanae asked why Kotaro still kept the charm with him and wondered if he was uncomfortable around her. She believed anyone would feel uneasy having a ghost in their room. Kotaro looked confused by what Sanae was saying. Sanae then realized that perhaps she had misunderstood Kotaro all along. Feeling upset, she quickly left, leaving Kotaro confused by her reaction. Kireha quietly commented that things did not seem to be going very smoothly. Meanwhile, the two men who had previously tried to capture Sanae were planning another attempt to ambush her using their ultimate weapon. The next day, Kotaro ate breakfast with his friends, but the atmosphere felt awkward because Sanae was still sulking. Kotaro apologized and explained that what happened the previous night had been completely accidental. Sanae sadly remarked that she was an evil spirit, so she understood why Kotaro kept carrying the charm given to him by his grandmother. Kotaro asked her not to talk about herself that way. Sanae then admitted that she and Kotaro could probably never live together peacefully and that they had been enemies from the very beginning. Kotaro acknowledged that they really had started out as enemies. After hearing that, Sanae bitterly declared that they would remain enemies forever. Angry and hurt, she stormed off in tears while calling Kotaro an idiot once again. Sanae sat alone by the sea, feeling down and full of regret. She felt foolish for getting angry at Kotaro. At first, she really had wanted to drive him away, but somehow her feelings had become far more complicated than she expected. Not far away, two men who had been targeting her were secretly watching. Their names were Aniki and Hachi. After thinking everything through carefully, Sanae finally decided to go back to being the same Sanae from before she met Kotaro. She reminded herself that Kotaro was supposed to be her enemy. Suddenly, Aniki and Hachi rushed toward Sanae and startled her. That afternoon, Kotaro was searching for Sanae because she still had not returned even though lunchtime was getting close. Not long after, Harumi approached him and asked whether he was not spending time with the others from yesterday. Kotaro explained that everyone had gone their separate ways that day. Harumi became curious about what had happened between them, so Kotaro told her everything. Meanwhile, Eureka was walking around looking for Sanae when she suddenly heard Sanae screaming. At that moment, Sanae's body was tightly restrained by magic. She struggled desperately and demanded to know what they wanted from her. Aniki said that resisting was useless because the thing binding her was a wandering spirit they had hired. Sanae quickly realized that the people behind this were the suspicious pair who had tried to capture her the day before. Hachi corrected her and explained that they were not weird troublemakers but ghost hunters. Their job was to capture ghosts and sell them. Sanae was shocked to learn that they intended to sell her. Aniki even explained that a fully visible ghost like Sanae had a very high value, and there were people willing to pay a huge amount of money for her. Sanae cried out in panic, refusing to be sold. Eureka witnessed the whole situation from nearby. She wanted to save Sanae, but there were many strange creatures around, and they terrified her. Eureka did not know what to do and wished someone would come help her. Then she suddenly remembered Harumi's advice about never giving up so easily. Her confidence slowly returned as she reminded herself that she was the rainbow magical girl who fought for justice. Just as Eureka was about to transform, the members of the cosplay club suddenly grabbed her and carried her away. At the same time, Kotaro had finished explaining Sanae's situation to Harumi. Harumi asked whether he knew why Sanae had become angry with him. Kotaro realized that his words had probably hurt her feelings, even though he had only spoken honestly. Usually, Sanae would react casually whenever he said things like that, which was why he could not understand why she suddenly became so upset this time. Harumi seemed to understand Sanae's feelings. Meanwhile, Aniki and Hachi carried Sanae away in their car. Sanae shouted that she refused to let herself be sold by them. A ghost girl traveling with them told Sanae that she should just give up. According to her, Sanae would probably end up in a much better place after being sold. Sanae immediately rejected that idea. The ghost girl then wondered whether Sanae even had a place she could return to. Sanae answered that she lived at Corona House Room 106. Hearing that, the ghost girl pointed out that Sanae had gotten used to bothering the residents there. She explained that nobody wanted to live in a haunted house. Hearing those words reminded Sanae about the way Kotaro had treated her. The ghost girl continued by saying that living people only saw ghosts as nuisances. People sold charms to drive ghosts away, and even if they accepted ghosts, it usually meant they simply tolerated their existence and nothing more. Sanae slowly realized the painful truth behind those words. Meanwhile, Harumi gave Kotaro an analogy. She explained that she and Kotaro were senior and junior members in the same club, but at the same time they could also simply be described as people who just happened to join the same extracurricular activity. In a similar situation, if Kotaro ever said something like that to her, she would probably cry and run away. Harumi explained that even if Kotaro's words were technically true, people's perspectives changed after spending time together and sharing experiences. She wanted Kotaro to see her as a friend. Kotaro was surprised and began wondering if Sanae also wanted to be seen as a friend. Harumi pointed out that otherwise there would be no reason for him to worry so much about someone he only happened to know. Kotaro then remembered Sanae's expressions whenever they were together. After that realization, he excused himself and hurried off to search for her again. Suddenly, he ran into the cosplay club members carrying Eureka away. Kotaro was confused about why they had tied her up like that. The cosplay club president declared that they would never let Taya Melise escape again. Kotaro realized that Eureka was trying to tell him something. He asked the cosplay club president for permission to speak with Eureka for a moment, and fortunately they allowed it. Eureka told Kotaro that Sanae had already been captured by ghost hunters before she even had the chance to do anything. After hearing that information, Kotaro thanked Eureka and immediately left. Eureka felt confused about why Kotaro had suddenly abandoned her like that. Kotaro returned to the inn and informed everyone about Sanae's kidnapping. He finally realized that the two suspicious men from the previous day had actually been targeting Sanae all along. It also seemed that they had received help from a ghost, which prevented Sanae from escaping. The first thing they needed to do was figure out Sanae's current location. Shizuka brought out a ghost tracking device and confidently explained that they could track Sanae down with it. Kotaro quickly activated the machine, but to everyone's surprise, it suddenly exploded. Kotaro could not understand how it had failed so dramatically. Kurama explained that the ether shock had likely caused the malfunction, and the device itself was too old to withstand that kind of disturbance. Shizuka apologized to everyone, but Tayamilise assured her that it was not her fault and suggested they move on to another plan. Unfortunately, the technology from the Fordora Kingdom did not include any devices capable of tracking ghosts. Kireha offered to help and asked Kurama to handle the search instead. The two of them used the power of the Mikora beam, a special light emitted from their eyes, to locate Sanae. Kotaro wondered why everyone was so willing to help Sanae. Kireha told him not to think too deeply about it because she fully intended to collect favors from them later. Hearing that, Tayamilise declared that she was helping because the criminal's actions felt insulting to all of them. Ruth Kania admitted that she strongly disliked anyone who treated women disrespectfully. Shizuka confidently stated that together they could stop those awful ghost hunters once and for all. After Kurama finished their scan, everyone eagerly prepared to rescue Sanae. Meanwhile, Sanae sat quietly inside the ghost hunter's hideout, looking completely downhearted. The ghost girl watching over her felt sorry for her and believed that no matter how long Sanae waited, none of her friends would come. Sanae insisted that she was not waiting for anyone, but the ghost girl could tell from her expression that she still hoped her friends would rescue her. The ghost girl claimed that Sanae trusted Kotaro deeply, yet she believed he had already betrayed her. Sanae immediately denied it, leading the ghost girl to assume that Sanae still believed Kotaro would never betray her. The ghost girl understood those feelings because she had once gone through something similar herself. At the same time, Kotaro and the others had already arrived outside the place where Sanae was being held. Inside the hideout, the ghost girl continued talking to Sanae about someone she had once waited for, only to be abandoned in the end. That person had apparently been relieved to finally be free from her. The ghost girl warned Sanae not to hold on to hope because nothing but sadness awaited her in a home that no longer wished for her return. In her eyes, ghosts were treated as enemies by the living. Suddenly, an emergency alarm echoed throughout the building. Hachi became confused because all the traps they had prepared above ground had already been neutralized. It turned out that Tayamilise and Ruth Kania had successfully disabled the entire security system. Ruth Kania even felt that the two of them might have gone a little overboard. Kurama informed everyone that the target was directly below them, and they immediately rushed toward the location. Meanwhile, Eureka managed to escape from the cosplay club. She reminded herself not to give up, just as Hirome had encouraged her to do. Without hesitation, she transformed into her magical girl form. At the same time, Hachi panicked after seeing Kotaro and the others approaching their location. Aniki suggested that they should use ghosts against them. Sanae started wondering if Kotaro had really come for her, but she quickly pushed the thought away. She believed that she and Kotaro were enemies. Even after everything they had been through together, Sanae still thought Kotaro hated her and saw her as nothing more than a nuisance. Suddenly, Kotaro and the others burst through the ceiling and entered the room. Kotaro immediately called out to Sanae. Sanae could hardly believe that he had actually come for her. She scolded Kotaro for showing up even though she had never asked for his help, especially because she believed that a ghost like herself was nothing but trouble in his eyes. Aniki firmly declared that Sanae belonged to him now and warned everyone to leave before anyone got hurt. Shizuka confidently stated that she could send all of them to prison. Aniki mocked her, questioning what law could possibly punish them when there were no laws against kidnapping ghosts. Kireha calmly responded that Aniki and Hachi had chosen the wrong enemies. She reminded them that she was an invader and had no reason to care about the laws of that country. Tayamilise added that Earth's laws had nothing to do with her either because neither she nor Ruth Kania were residents of Earth. Shizuka firmly declared that she would always protect the residents of her boarding house, and even if Sanae was a ghost, she was still one of her tenants. Finally, Kotaro demanded that the criminals release Sanae immediately. Aniki was furious and ordered the evil spirits to attack everyone. The spirits were about to charge forward, but Kurama and Kurama immediately launched their counterattacks. Kireha joined in as well, saying that although there were a lot of them, they were weak. Teyamiles fired at the evil spirits with her weapon, while Rokanaya used her sword to drive back the ones attacking her. At that moment, one of the evil spirits tried to attack Kotaro from behind, but Shizuoka quickly stepped in and protected him. She warned Kotaro not to let his guard down and told him to hurry and help Sanae while she handled the spirits herself. Kotaro immediately ran towards Sanae. Sanae was deeply moved to see her friends come to rescue her, but the ghost girl warned her not to trust them. According to the ghost girl, Sanae might be saved today, but there was no guarantee about tomorrow. She believed Sanae's friends would eventually abandon them, so she thought there was no point in believing in their kindness. Even so, after seeing how hard everyone was fighting for her, Sanae chose to trust her friends. The ghost girl asked if that meant Sanae was betraying her, even after everything she had done for her. Upset by Sanae's decision, the ghost girl declared that she would never forgive her. She then ordered the evil spirits to combine their power and fight against Sanae. Aniki and Hachi could not understand why the evil spirits were suddenly merging together. Before long, the spirits united into a gigantic ghost. The massive ghost attempted to attack Sanae, but Kotaro quickly rushed in to protect her after she fell. At the same time, Eureka followed the guidance of her staff and arrived at an old building. She looked frightened, but she believed Harumi would be disappointed if she gave up now. Meanwhile, Kotaro swung his sword at the evil spirit, but the creature was incredibly powerful and sent him crashing to the ground. His friends tried to help him, yet the spirit immediately struck them back. The giant ghost then grabbed Sanae and she struggled to break free. Sanae cried out for Kotaro to save her. Hearing her voice, Kotaro desperately looked for a way to help. Soon after, Sanae's body was absorbed into the evil spirit. The ghost became delighted after gaining access to Sanae's power. Furious that the spirit had taken Sanae away, Kotaro believed there had to be something he could do. Kotaro decided to use the protective charm given to him by his grandmother. He leaped away to dodge the ghost's attack and struck directly toward its face. At the same moment, Eureka activated the power of her magic staff in front of the old building. Kotaro successfully injured the evil spirit with the charm. He was surprised to discover that the attack was actually effective. The ghost cried out in pain and warned Kotaro that if he kept using the charm, Sanae could disappear as well. However, Kotaro firmly believed Sanae was not that weak. He knew his family's protective charm would never harm her. Kotaro then threw the charm, successfully destroying the evil spirit. Sanae's body was released and fell to the ground. When she regained consciousness, she was surprised that touching the charm did not hurt her at all. At that moment, Sanae realized the family charm would never harm her because she had always stayed by Kotaro's side like part of his family. Overcome with emotion, Sanae began to cry, leaving Kotaro shocked to see her in tears. Their friends immediately blamed Kotaro for making Sanae cry, but Sanae instead thanked both Kotaro and everyone else for saving her. Meanwhile, Aniki and Hachi fled from their hideout. They were terrified and could not understand what kind of people Kotaro's friends really were. Not long after, Kurama and Kurama managed to capture them, while Kareya took responsibility for dealing with them. The next day at school, Kotaro told Harumi that he and Sanae had finally made up. He explained that it was all thanks to Harumi, and he sincerely thanked her for everything she had done. Harumi was happy to hear that. Suddenly, Sanae appeared out of nowhere and startled Kotaro. She had purposely come just to tease him, and she was even wearing Kotaro's family charm. That day, Teyamiles was quietly enjoying a book when Ruth Kania arrived and served tea for her. Teyamiles truly loved reading the storybook her mother had given her. It told the tale of the Silver Princess and the Blue Knight. One day, Kotaro asked his friends to help write a script for the theater club because the cultural festival was coming up soon. Kenji was a member of the theater club, and they still had not decided on a play concept for that year. Because of that, Kotaro really wanted to help him. Kireha asked Sanae what Kotaro's real reason was. Sanae explained that Kenji had said Kotaro was not capable of doing something like that and that Kenji did not need his help. Apparently, Kotaro could not accept those comments. Teyamiles called Kotaro an idiot. According to Kotaro, if everyone wrote one story, their chances of getting a script accepted would be much higher. The deadline was only 1 month away, so they were running out of time. Kotaro offered them a reward. He promised to give 5 of his own points to anyone willing to help write a script, and if their script was chosen, he would give them 20 more points. Kireha admitted it was an interesting offer. Teyamiles once again called Kotaro foolish and wondered if beating Kenji was really that important to him. Kotaro replied that sometimes men had battles they simply needed to face. In the end, he just wanted everyone's help to embarrass Kenji a little. Eureka agreed to help right away. If her story got selected, she could earn 25 points, and even if it did not, she would still receive 5 points. Kotaro encouraged her to do her best so her story would be chosen. Taemin accepted the offer as well because she believed a master should grant the wishes of her servants. Sanae was also interested in helping Kotaro, especially since the two of them had already called a truce. Kireha reluctantly joined because she did not want Taemin catching up to her score. Kireha was currently ahead by 3 points. Still, aside from that, she genuinely wanted to help Kotaro. Hearing everyone agree made Kotaro even more confident that he could make Kenji feel embarrassed. That night, all of them started thinking about what kind of story they should write. However, it turned out to be much harder than they expected. Not long afterward, Ruth Kania informed Taemin that she needed to return to the Blue Knight to analyze some data. Taemin said she would join her soon because she had already come up with an idea for her story. Kotaro was surprised that Taemin had figured something out so quickly. Taemin proudly claimed that her intelligence was naturally far beyond that of an extinct creature like Kotaro. Kotaro got annoyed because she had insulted him again. Ruth Kania left shortly after to prepare a place for Taemin to write. A little while later, Eureka arrived asking for help. The vice president of the cosplay club had asked her to look after a pet during a move. Kotaro wondered what kind of animal it was. Eureka carefully brought it out, and to everyone's surprise, it was a beetle. Kotaro stared at it in shock. He called Eureka foolish and could not understand why she had brought something like that into the apartment. Eureka immediately started apologizing tearfully. Sanae wondered why Eureka always gave in so easily in situations like that. Taemin asked whether the insect was dangerous. Kireha explained that it was a rhinoceros beetle. The moment she heard that, Taemin realized that if Ruth Kania saw it, she would definitely become very upset. That was exactly what Kotaro had been worried about. Kireha then asked how long Eureka would be taking care of the beetle. Since the vice president's family was quite wealthy and had a lot of belongings to move, Eureka explained that it would probably take 1 or 2 months. Taemin thought avoiding Ruth Kania would not be too difficult since Ruth Kania was very disciplined with her routine. Suddenly, Ruth Kania returned. Kotaro and Taemin quickly hid Eureka and the beetle inside the closet. Ruth Kania had only come back because she forgot something, but she became suspicious of Kotaro and Taemin's strange behavior. The two of them desperately insisted that nothing unusual was happening. Later that night, Sanae and Kotaro were still discussing ideas for their stories. Sanae wanted to write about her mother, who had once refused an arranged marriage. Sanae's mother came from a wealthy family and had been expected to marry the son of another influential family. Instead, she ran away to be with Sanae's father, who had been her childhood friend. Sanae asked whether Kotaro wanted to take a break since she had been possessing him for quite a long time. Kotaro admitted he was still not tired and said he had not come up with any ideas for his own story yet. Kotaro commented that being possessed by a ghost felt strange, but also surprisingly fun. Sanae promised that afterwards she would massage Kotaro's shoulders and help him finish his writing. Kotaro was amazed by how good Sanae's writing was, and Sanae looked happy after hearing the compliment. Sanae said Kotaro could probably write just as well if his hands remembered how to do it properly. She continued writing while asking Kotaro to praise her more. Kotaro gently patted Sanae on the head and told her she was doing a great job. Suddenly, Eureka burst into tears while asking Kotaro for help. The beetle kept moving around so much that she could not sleep. Kotaro ignored her because he believed it was Eureka's own problem to deal with. The beetle, whose name was Hercules, kept making noisy scratching sounds whenever it moved around, and Eureka begged Kotaro to help her calm down. Sanae casually suggested getting rid of the beetle altogether. However, Eureka could not do that because Hercules was extremely important to the cosplay club vice president's younger brother. Seeing Eureka look so desperate, Kotaro suggested that Hercules could simply be stored inside the closet. However, Sanae instead asked Eureka to leave the apartment. Eureka started crying again, so Kotaro gently comforted Sanae and asked her not to say things like that. It turned out that Kotaro had only wanted Eureka to put Hercules in the closet, and he even allowed Eureka to sleep in his room. Eureka was overjoyed and thanked Kotaro sincerely. Meanwhile, Taemin was seriously focused on writing a story. Ruth Kania asked whether Taemin was not tired, especially since instant writing equipment had already been prepared for her. However, Taemin refused to use it because she wanted to compete fairly, just like Kotaro and Kireha were doing. Suddenly, a warning about a space-time distortion appeared at coordinates 125, 88, 493, and 181, located near planet Earth. A month later, it turned out that Taemin's script had been chosen by the theater club. Everyone applauded for her achievement. The theater club president praised the story as beautiful, explaining that it told the tale of the Silver Princess and the Blue Knight. Kotaro was shocked that Taemin's script had been selected, especially after he and the others had stayed up all night writing their own stories. Taemin called them amateurs who simply could not understand what she had written. Kurama became curious about why Kotaro and Eureka had grown so close lately. According to Kiriha, it was probably because the two of them had spent many nights writing scripts together. Taya Miles laughed proudly at everyone who had lost, which only irritated Kotaro even more. That day, the school was busy preparing for the Shuhara festival. The story of the Silver Princess and the Blue Knight was already famous throughout the entire Fordorith kingdom. Ruth Konea explained that Princess Alaya of Fordorith had once faced the threat of a coup, and General Rayos, the Blue Knight, protected her as they traveled to visit an old friend in the land of Partamshiha. Kotaro realized that the story really did match the theater club president's taste perfectly. Ruth Konea also mentioned that every woman in Fordorith admired the Blue Knight, and even the queen herself loved the story. Kotaro finally understood why Taya Miles had been so passionate about writing it. Ruth Konea believed that Taya Miles would have been deeply disappointed if her script had not been chosen. Because of that, she wanted Kotaro to support Taya Miles as much as possible, especially considering how strongly Taya Miles admired the Blue Knight. Kotaro assured her that he would help, especially since he had also asked Taya Miles for help before. Ruth Konea thanked Kotaro warmly and called him a genuinely kind person. While choosing the actress for the Silver Princess role, Taya Miles seemed dissatisfied with the candidates because she believed the actress should appear more delicate. The theater club president explained that the Silver Princess needed to be graceful while also carrying the spirit and dignity of royalty. Taya Miles was surprised that the theater club president understood the character so well. Eureka volunteered to play the Silver Princess because she did not want to play the back half of a horse costume where her face would never be seen. The theater club president explained that they had limited members available for the performance. Taya Miles stated that anyone could play the Blue Knight, and she even agreed to let Kenji take the role, but she absolutely refused to let the Silver Princess look unsuitable for the part. Eureka could not believe they were ignoring her so completely. Kotaro stepped in to help her. He said that he knew someone perfect to play the Silver Princess, but in exchange he wanted Eureka to receive a role where her face could actually be seen. Taya Miles agreed, and the theater club president allowed Eureka to play the villain instead. Eureka happily accepted and declared that she would do her best to act as evil as possible. Taya Miles then asked who Kotaro thought would fit the role of the Silver Princess. Kotaro said he would go bring that person over. Not long afterward, Harumi arrived because Kotaro had called for her earlier. It turned out that the person Kotaro had chosen for the Silver Princess role was Harumi. That evening, Harumi practiced together with Kotaro on the school rooftop. Kotaro praised Harumi's acting, saying it was incredibly good. Harumi was surprised because even though she thought the story itself was wonderful, she still could not fully understand Alaya's feelings as the Silver Princess. Kotaro guessed that it was probably because she did not have someone to act opposite of during practice. He then offered to help Harumi rehearse the dialogue scenes. Kotaro began acting as the Blue Knight, and at that moment, Harumi finally realized that Alaya had feelings for him. From then on, Harumi gradually began to understand both the story and the emotions experienced by the Silver Princess. Her acting became even more natural and heartfelt. Harumi finally understood why the Silver Princess could never leave the man she cared about. Kotaro himself became completely captivated by Harumi's performance because it felt so genuine and real. Not long later, the theater club president praised Harumi's acting and admitted that choosing her for the role had definitely been the right decision. The theater club president said she was truly looking forward to the play and that she was also relying on Kotaro's support. Kotaro replied that he would continue helping Harumi no matter what. Meanwhile, Taya Miles and Ruth Konea still had not found any clues regarding the space-time distortion. They could not even detect a weak signal. The only thing they could do was stay alert, and she hoped it was nothing more than a warning sign. The day before the performance, Kotaro was walking around the school grounds while Sanae encouraged him as usual. Suddenly, a blue mass of light appeared, and Taya Miles emerged from it. She immediately asked Kotaro for help, though she still carried herself with her usual prideful attitude toward him. Kotaro tried to walk away, but Taya Miles stopped him. She said it was better to tell him than to explain the situation to a random passerby. Taya Miles explained that she had been carrying equipment for the play when she tripped and fell. She even said she did not care if Kotaro laughed at her for it. Instead, Kotaro helped her back to her feet. Taya Miles looked surprised because he would normally tease her in a situation like that. Kotaro admitted that he had changed his mind. Usually, Taya Miles caused strange problems, but this time she had been helping everyone, and that was not something worth making fun of. Kotaro even knelt down and asked if she was hurt. Taya Miles suddenly blushed at the way he treated her. She was even startled because Kotaro looked just like the Blue Knight at that moment. Kotaro and Sanae both became confused when Taya Miles suddenly went silent like that. She quickly claimed that she was fine. Later, Taya Miles admitted that she was dissatisfied with Harumi's acting. She could not understand it because the theater club president had previously praised Harumi's performance. The club president was also confused since Harumi's acting felt different from the way she acted on the school rooftop before. She even wondered if Harome was feeling unwell. Taeamilis raised her voice and reminded everyone that they did not have much time left. Kireha immediately scolded her for speaking that way. According to Kireha, Harumi was probably just nervous because it was her first rehearsal. Kotaro also believed Harumi felt pressured because she had to perform directly alongside Kenji. Taeamilis then asked Kotaro what he planned to do. Kotaro said they should take things slowly. He then asked Kenji to switch places with him for a while. Kotaro intentionally took Kenji's role so Harumi could feel more comfortable and return to acting naturally again. After that, they planned to slowly transition the role back to Kenji. Taeamilis eventually agreed to follow Kotaro's idea. Kotaro confidently said that Taeamilis would soon be amazed by Harumi's acting. They immediately began rehearsing again, and just as Kotaro expected, Taeamilis was stunned by what she saw. It felt as though a real story was unfolding right in front of her eyes. Their acting looked incredibly natural, and they perfectly portrayed the genuine emotions of the Silver Princess and the Blue Knight. Taeamilis could only stare in amazement. Kotaro then asked what she thought about Harumi's performance. Taeamilis admitted that Harumi's acting had become much better. She also felt that Kotaro himself looked more like the true Blue Knight. The theater club president praised Harumi as well and asked her to remember that feeling when performing alongside Kenji later. However, Kireha believed Harumi's incredible performance only appeared when she acted with Kotaro. Because of that, she suggested replacing the actor for the Blue Knight role with Kotaro himself. Kotaro was shocked to hear that suggestion. Kireha explained that it was a much better solution than forcing Harumi to struggle while acting with Kenji. Kenji also agreed with the idea and accepted the decision. It was not because he wanted to give up the role, but because he honestly felt unable to bring out Harumi's best acting while performing with her. In his opinion, only Kotaro could truly play the role of the Blue Knight. Taeamilis agreed as well and approved the decision to replace the Blue Knight with Kotaro. The students immediately cheered with excitement. Kotaro admitted that even playing the role of a soldier was already difficult for him, let alone the Blue Knight. Taeamilis confidently stated that nobody understood the Blue Knight better than she did. She promised that before the day of the performance arrived, she would turn Kotaro into the perfect Blue Knight. Unbeknownst to them, a mysterious girl had been secretly watching everything from a distance. She planned to make sure that Taeamilis' little game would not end happily. Taeamilis felt really disappointed because Kotaro still could not act like a proper knight, even after she had taught him over and over again. He still could not draw his sword correctly. In fact, he could barely pull the sword out of its sheath properly at all. After seeing that, Taeamilis scolded him and reminded him that a sword was a knight's very life, so Kotaro should have treated it with care instead of damaging it. Ruth Kania arrived with tea for them, and the three of them decided to take a short break. While drinking tea together, Ruth Kania was surprised to discover that Kotaro had the exact same body size as the Blue Knight. Earlier, Taeamilis had assumed the armor was malfunctioning because it did not appear when she called for it, so she never expected something so incredible to happen. Taeamilis then asked Ruth Kania about the ship, but Ruth Kania explained that they still had not found any signs of it since that day. Kotaro asked what exactly was going on. Ruth Kania explained that several days earlier, a Fordora ship had appeared near Earth. She had detected a space-time distortion when the ship arrived, but she still could not confirm the details. Taeamilis suspected that it was Clariosa, the second queen of the Fordora Galactic Kingdom. Kotaro asked whether Clariosa was Taeamilis' rival, but he also pointed out that there was still no proof that Clariosa was involved. According to Taeamilis, the lack of evidence was proof in itself because Rujetsu, Clariosa's ship, used a cloaking system personally developed by Clariosa. However, that system also reduced the ship's combat abilities. Not long after that, Taeamilis told Kotaro to continue training again, even though he had thought their practice session was already over. That night, Eureka was feeding Hercules. Sanae wondered how long they were going to keep taking care of Hercules. Eureka admitted that she still did not know because the vice president of the cosplay club had not finished moving to the new house yet. Suddenly, Ruth Kania appeared and commented on how long the beetle's horn was. Eureka and Sanae were both startled by her sudden arrival. Ruth Kania asked what kind of insect was inside the cage. Sanae was surprised that Ruth Kania did not recognize the creature at all. Ruth Kania explained that it was her first time seeing one. Eureka told her that the insect was called Hercules. Ruth Kania happily said that Hercules looked very cute. The next day, all the students were busy preparing for the play. Harumi heard that Kotaro had been going through intense training under Taeamilis. Kotaro did not mind it at all because he was determined to give everything he had before the day of the performance. At that moment, Taeamilis told everyone how difficult it had been to teach Kotaro to behave like a knight. Still, she admitted that his posture and the way he walked had improved a lot compared to before. Kireha was convinced that Taeamilis must have scolded Kotaro non-stop during training. Sanae then asked Kireha what costume she would be wearing since she thought Kireha was supposed to work as the stage supervisor. Teamiles explained that the student playing the priest had gotten sick, and since Kiriha's appearance suited the role perfectly, she had asked her to help out. Kiriha had not even had time to read the priest's lines yet, so she quickly needed to go over the script. The president of the theater club told everyone to get ready for rehearsal of the first scene. Kotaro encouraged Harumi so they could do their best together. Sanae also said she was willing to help Kotaro if he forgot any of his lines. Suddenly, Kotaro noticed a girl he had never seen before. Kotaro and Harumi began acting out their scene together. As usual, Teamiles watched them as if everything felt completely real. Once again, she experienced the same strange feeling and wondered why the princess protected by the Blue Knight was not herself. While watching Kotaro's performance, Kiriha suddenly remembered hearing those exact same words from someone she once cared deeply about. She became confused about why the words were identical and wondered if they had originally belonged to the Blue Knight. Then something unexpected happened. One of the stage lights above Teamiles suddenly fell. Fortunately, Kotaro reacted immediately and protected her. He quickly asked whether she was hurt. Teamiles was shocked because in that moment, Kotaro looked exactly like the Blue Knight, saving her once again. Kotaro felt relieved after confirming that she was safe, and he helped her back onto her feet. Teamiles noticed that Kotaro had been injured by pieces of the broken light, but Kotaro told her not to worry because it was only a minor scratch. Teamiles said that he had gotten hurt while protecting her. Kotaro calmly replied that it was fine and reminded her that he was not the real Blue Knight like she believed. Even so, Teamiles felt dizzy as she continued seeing Kotaro overlap with the image of the Blue Knight in her mind. Kiriha examined the broken light fixture and became convinced that it was not an accident. That night, Kotaro and the others gathered in the apartment to discuss what had happened. Kotaro believed that Clariosa was targeting Teamiles, and since Clariosa never showed herself openly, it felt like a dangerous game of hide-and-seek. Teamiles thought that behavior was completely unworthy of someone from a royal family. Sanae asked Ruth Kania whether Teamiles and Clariosa were enemies. Ruth Kania admitted that they were, especially because their personalities were complete opposites, and they had even argued with each other many times before. Sanae then remembered when Teamiles once said that she could not afford to lose because of her mother. Kiriha believed that Teamiles needed to prepare a strategy to deal with Clariosa. However, Teamiles felt that if Clariosa truly intended to eliminate her, she would never leave evidence behind, so the situation was probably still under control. Ruth Kania explained that if the Fort of the Kingdom discovered what had just happened, Clariosa would most likely be removed from the line of succession. Kiriha warned everyone that Clariosa was not an opponent to underestimate. Sanae commented that if Clariosa truly wanted to take down Teamiles, she would probably attack using her ship. Kotaro advised everyone to stay alert. Teamiles then asked Kotaro to protect her, reminding him that it was his duty as the Blue Knight. Kotaro jokingly pointed out that Teamiles only called him the Blue Knight whenever she wanted something from him. The next day went on as usual, and everyone returned to acting practice. Kotaro stayed close to Teamiles as her guard, constantly protecting her. That afternoon, the theater cast finally finished their dress rehearsal. The theater club president invited everyone to celebrate and enjoy a party that evening. Kotaro really wanted to join the party with everyone else, but Teamiles stopped him because she wanted him to spend his free time training as a knight instead. Sanae looked disappointed because she had been looking forward to spending time with Kotaro. Kiriha told Sanae not to worry and said that if Kotaro truly hated the training, he would have run away already. Sanae was surprised that Kotaro willingly accepted training from Teamiles. In Sanae's opinion, Kotaro could be a little strange sometimes. While the others enjoyed the party, Teamiles taught Kotaro how to properly draw a sword, pushing him through intense training. At that moment, Harumi noticed the two of them practicing together. She quietly felt that Kotaro never acted that seriously whenever he was around her. Later that night, Eureka returned to the apartment while Ruth Kania was preparing dinner. Ruth Kania asked how the party had gone. Eureka said the party had been really fun, but she needed to come back early to feed Hercules. Ruth Kania then turned on the television and served tea for Eureka. At that moment, the TV program featured a rhinoceros beetle-themed hero show and displayed a close-up of a rhinoceros beetle. The sight immediately made Eureka panic. Ruth Kania became furious after realizing that Hercules was actually a rhinoceros beetle. She instantly tried to chase it away, while Eureka hurriedly grabbed Hercules and ran to protect him from Ruth Kania. Meanwhile, Teamiles continued training Kotaro and admitted that his attitude as a knight had improved a lot. Hearing that praise made Kotaro cheer excitedly, but Teamiles quickly reminded him to behave more like a proper knight. A little while later, they heard dance music coming from the party nearby. It had been a very long time since Teamiles last danced, so Kotaro agreed to let her teach him. As they practiced together, Teamiles became annoyed because Kotaro accidentally stepped on her feet over and over again. Kotaro admitted that dancing was much harder than he expected. Even though Teamiles kept scolding him, he still continued practicing with her. Soon after, Shizuka, Sanae, and Kireha arrived to watch them. Sanae was shocked because she thought Kotaro would have become bored with the training by now. Kireha thanked Kurama and Kurama for watching over the two of them and asked whether anyone had entered while she was gone. Kurama and Kurama replied that only Harumi had stopped by briefly before leaving again. Kireha told them to stay alert. Shizuka finally understood that Tayamulaze was caught in a complicated family conflict, and she realized just how difficult the life of a princess could be. Suddenly, Eureka rushed over and begged everyone for help. Sanae asked why she looked so panicked. Eureka explained that Ruth Kania had discovered Hercules was a rhinoceros beetle and immediately chased after her with a terrifying expression. Sanae was shocked and wondered how Ruth Kania found out the truth. Kireha told Eureka to hide first, while Shizuka directed her to a room near the stage. As Ruth Kania came running closer, Eureka quickly hid herself away. Shizuka and Sanae tried asking why Ruth Kania had suddenly come to the school. Still overwhelmed with emotion, Ruth Kania headed straight toward the room's door, making Sanae nervous. Kireha noticed that Ruth Kania was so upset that she was barely paying attention to anyone around her. Then suddenly, Ruth Kania spotted Tayamulaze and Kotaro dancing together. The moment she saw them, all of her anger instantly disappeared. She even looked confused about why she had come to the school carrying that bat in the first place. Without warning, the atmosphere suddenly turned dangerous. Kurama and Kurama detected a space-time distortion coming from the gymnasium. Kireha immediately informed Tayamulaze and Kotaro that an enemy had arrived. Clariosa then appeared right in front of Tayamulaze. Kotaro finally realized that Clariosa was the mysterious girl he had seen before. Tayamulaze was shocked that Clariosa had decided to attack openly using a weapon. Ruth Kania explained that if Clariosa used weapons created from materials found on Earth, the Fordorita Kingdom would not be able to interfere. Kotaro felt that something about the situation seemed strange. He questioned why Clariosa suddenly appeared now after staying hidden for so long, and why she would risk exposing herself just to knock down a light fixture earlier. He started to suspect that there was another reason behind Clariosa's actions and that she wanted Tayamulaze to respond in a certain way. As Clariosa activated her weapon, Ruth Kania prepared to counterattack with even greater power. However, Kotaro suddenly stepped in and stopped her. He warned Tayamulaze that Clariosa was deliberately trying to force her into bringing out her own weapon. Tayamulaze did not fully understand what Kotaro meant, but Kotaro asked her to trust him. As soon as Clariosa fired the attack, Kotaro immediately pulled Tayamulaze into his arms and shielded her from the blast. He quickly asked if she was alright, and Tayamulaze smiled happily after realizing that he had protected her. At that moment, Shizuka still could not understand what had actually happened. Ruth Kania explained that Clariosa had likely done something to force Tayamulaze to draw her weapon, which caused the explosion. According to Kotaro, Clariosa had not come only to bring down the lights. She had also prepared explosives beforehand. Clariosa grew frustrated and refused to let Kotaro ruin her plan so easily. She moved to attack him, but Sanae, along with Kurama and Kurama, stepped forward to protect him. Even so, Kotaro told them to focus on protecting Tayamulaze instead. Tayamulaze warned him about the danger of fighting alone, but Kotaro calmly replied that a battlefield was where a knight belonged, and that a princess should not be involved in such danger. He asked Tayamulaze to trust him because he was her knight. Tayamulaze was genuinely surprised to hear Kotaro declare himself as her knight. At that moment, Kotaro charged straight toward Clariosa to confront her. Clariosa laughed at the sight of the imitation blue knight standing before her. Kotaro swung his sword at Clariosa, while she immediately raised a shield wall to protect herself. She believed there was no way Kotaro could do anything with a dull sword like that. However, to her shock, the shield wall slowly began to crack apart. Clariosa could not believe that someone like Kotaro possessed real Signalton power. Sanae pointed out that the glow from the sword was exactly the same as what she had seen before. Tayamulaze started wondering if Kotaro truly might be the Blue Knight because the sword should not have possessed that much power otherwise. Frustrated, Clariosa tried to fire her weapon at Kotaro. Before she could act, Sanae suddenly distracted her and disrupted her stance, while Shizuka became oddly focused on the cat design on Clariosa's outfit. Taking advantage of the opening, Kotaro immediately swung his sword and sliced through Clariosa's weapon, destroying it completely. Clariosa could not believe that someone she considered an outdated existence had managed to defeat her, the one known as Schweiger of the Moon. Kotaro calmly told her to give up since the outcome had already been decided. Refusing to back down, Clariosa ordered her support tool, Rugetsu, to attack Kotaro instead. Tayamulaze shouted for Kotaro to dodge, but Clariosa had already commanded Rugetsu to eliminate him completely. Not long afterward, Kurama and Kurama arrived carrying the explosives that Clariosa had prepared earlier. Kireha told Clariosa that she should fear her own weapons instead. Kurama and Kurama immediately detonated the explosives, but Clariosa had already escaped beforehand. Kireha asked whether they should chase after her, but Tayamulaze felt it would only waste time. Instead, she praised Kotaro for everything he had done. Kotaro apologized for destroying the sword, yet Tayamilaise was not angry at all. He found that surprising, since she had once said that a sword was the very life of a knight. Tayamilaise explained that a sword was merely the symbol of a knight's oath. What truly mattered was protecting the oath itself, not the sword. She could not believe Kotaro still failed to understand something so important. In the end, Tayamilaise decided that she would personally train Kotaro to become a real knight, and Kotaro found himself completely unable to refuse her decision. Meanwhile, Clariosa was preparing to detonate another weapon inside the gymnasium. Suddenly, Eureka crashed into her, and Eureka used her powers to make it appear as though nothing unusual had happened at all. The following day, the Shuharu Festival finally began. The festival proceeded smoothly without any major problems, and Clariosa eventually returned to where she came from. That night, Tayamilaise and Ruth Kanea visited Kotaro's room to officially grant him the title of knight, naming him Tayamilaise's Blue Knight. One night, a witch named Maki was practicing her floating magic. She felt relieved because her body had finally recovered. She was convinced that Eureka had been waiting for their battle, and she believed it would not be long before Eureka experienced fear and despair now that Maki had returned to settle the score with her. The next morning, Eureka explained to the cosplay club members that she was not actually a cosplayer, but a real magical girl. The president of the cosplay club praised Eureka for standing firmly by her beliefs. Kotaro even commented that Eureka had always been like that. Eureka told Kotaro that room 106 of Corona House was being targeted by evil witches and that she was there to stop them. Kotaro immediately apologized to everyone for Eureka's statement. Eureka could not understand why Kotaro still refused to believe her. The cosplay club members soon left, while Eureka continued wondering how she could possibly convince them. Kotaro told Eureka not to worry because, to him, she was the greatest cosplayer in the world. That morning, their teacher announced that a transfer student would be joining their class. The new student introduced herself in front of everyone, and her name was Maki. Eureka was shocked the moment she saw her and immediately hugged her. Even Maki was surprised by Eureka's reaction. Innocently, Eureka explained to Kotaro that Maki was an evil witch who was targeting her apartment room. She also revealed that Maki belonged to the Dark Rainbow, also known as the Dark Magical Girls. During break time, Kotaro sat together with Eureka and Sanae behind the school building. Sanae could not believe that someone like Eureka actually attended their school. Eureka wondered why the two of them still refused to believe her, and she firmly stated that Maki was not their friend but their enemy. Eureka explained that the Dark Magical Girls were highly skilled at magic that could influence people's hearts. Sanae still paid no attention to anything Eureka said, and Kotaro asked Eureka not to take Sanae's comments personally. Kotaro found it unbelievable that the people around him included aliens, underground princesses, and even ghosts. At the very least, he thought Eureka seemed like the only normal person around him, even if her hobbies were unusual. Eureka immediately asked if Kotaro considered her abnormal. According to Kotaro, differences did not change friendships. After that, he invited both girls to return to class, but Eureka still wanted to stay behind the school building a little longer. Kotaro reminded her not to be late for class. Suddenly, Maki appeared and asked Eureka whether Kotaro was the person living at the magical energy hotspot. Maki also asked if Eureka truly believed she could protect both Kotaro and that room. Eureka realized that Maki had come to challenge her. Maki did not deny it. According to her, their conflict had already been decided 100 years ago. The wounds Nana, the Rainbow Witch and Eureka's predecessor, had inflicted on her 8 months earlier had already healed. Now, Maki believed she only needed to defeat an inexperienced witch like Eureka, and she was certain she would not lose. Eureka firmly declared that as Nana's successor, she would definitely defeat Maki. Maki admitted that Eureka seemed slightly smarter than before. She then asked why Eureka had openly revealed her identity earlier. Despite pretending to be a cosplayer herself, Maki called Eureka sneaky, although Eureka insisted she had never intended it that way. Maki still refused to believe her and said their battle would be far more interesting this time. Eureka begged Maki to listen until she finished explaining. Maki then announced that she would also join the cosplay club so that things would be more balanced between them. She told Eureka to prepare herself. Eureka could not believe that even Maki refused to trust her. Suddenly, Harumi approached Eureka because she wanted to talk with her about something important. After school, Harumi invited Eureka to a cafe. Harumi confessed that she wanted to become closer to Kotaro. She hoped Kotaro would stop treating her so formally because she wanted a more relaxed relationship with him, similar to the way he interacted with Eureka or Tayamilaise. Eureka told Harumi not to think too deeply about it because Kotaro could sometimes be rude and often acted rough with people. Harumi replied that Kotaro had never treated her that way, but Eureka complained that Kotaro was never nice to her. Eureka understood Harumi's feelings and promised that she would help her. She confidently claimed that she understood romance because she had spent 10 years reading girls' comics. Harumi then asked what she should do. Eureka suggested that they go on a double date together. The moment Harumi heard that idea, her face immediately turned bright red. That evening, Eureka returned to Corona House. She finally realized that Harumi truly had feelings for Kotaro. Suddenly, Eureka remembered that she still had to face Maki now that the witch had appeared again. Eureka felt uncertain about whether she could win or not. Even so, she knew she had to fight, especially after Nana had risked her life to help her. Eureka encouraged herself and tried to stay positive. As soon as she arrived in front of the apartment building, she heard Kotaro and the others holding a welcome party for Maki. Eureka quickly walked in and asked why Kotaro had brought Maki to the apartment. Kotaro replied that there should not be any problem with welcoming a new student. Eureka firmly reminded everyone that Maki was a magician targeting that room, and if they let her enter so easily, she could gather information about the place without any trouble. Unfortunately, everyone still thought Eureka was just talking about cosplay. Eureka desperately hoped Kotaro would believe her, because they could end up in serious trouble if they did not send Maki away soon. Kotaro felt that Eureka was being rude toward Maki by speaking like that. Kotaro stepped closer to Eureka and asked her to explain clearly who Maki really was. Before Eureka could say anything, Kenji suddenly arrived carrying snacks, including Kotaro's favorite rhinoceros beetle-shaped chocolate treats. The moment Ruth Kaniya heard the words rhinoceros beetle, her expression suddenly became intense, and she started pounding on the table in panic. Kotaro immediately tried to calm her down. At that moment, Eureka tried once again to explain the truth about Maki, but Kotaro was too busy comforting Ruth Kaniya. Kotaro asked Kenji to clean up the snacks, but Kenji accidentally made an even bigger mess, causing the situation to become even more chaotic. Eureka continued trying to warn everyone about Maki, but Sanae asked her not to bring up the topic at that moment. According to Teyamlis, it would be too harsh to suddenly force Maki to leave. Shizuka added that they had intentionally prepared a welcoming party for Maki that day. Hearing everyone's responses made Eureka feel heartbroken because nobody believed her, even though she was honestly trying to protect them. In the end, Eureka quietly chose to leave. That afternoon, Harumi was walking alone while still thinking about the date Eureka had suggested earlier. Not long afterward, she noticed Eureka sitting alone on a park bench, lost in thought. Eureka admitted that she felt sad because none of her friends believed her, even though she had tried so hard to tell them the truth. Harumi explained that even if they did not believe Eureka, they were still her friends, and protecting them was probably the reason Eureka felt so troubled. Harumi honestly did not understand the full situation, but she suggested that Eureka should do something that would help everyone understand what she believed in. According to Harumi, words alone might not be enough, and actions could speak more clearly. Eureka paused for a moment before promising that she would do everything she could. Harumi smiled warmly after hearing her determination. The next morning, Kotaro invited Eureka to head to school together, but Eureka never came out of the closet. She claimed that she was not feeling well and asked Kotaro to leave without her. Kotaro wondered if it had something to do with what Eureka had said the day before. Kotaro eventually left for school with the others. Kireha believed they probably did not need to worry too much about Eureka, but just to be safe, she ordered Kurama and Kurama to stay behind and keep watch. After everyone left for school, Eureka stepped out of the closet wearing her magician outfit. She thought that if nobody believed her words, then she would have to prove herself through her actions. After all, she was a magician whose duty was to protect room 106. Deep down, she hoped Kotaro and the others would eventually trust her. That morning, Harumi was walking alone to school while still thinking about the idea of going on a date. Suddenly, she crossed paths with Maki, who was dressed as a magician. The sky was heavily overcast that day. Ruth Kaniya informed everyone that the theater club wanted to continue the Blue Night play for the New Year's celebration. Teyamils was not surprised at all and immediately asked Kotaro to practice becoming the knight again. At the same time, Kireha shared new information from Kurama and Kurama. According to their report, Eureka had left the apartment wearing her magician costume and gone somewhere unknown. Shizuka immediately assumed that Eureka had skipped school just to practice cosplay, and Teyamlis quickly agreed with that conclusion. Sanae could not believe that Eureka had worried everyone over what seemed like cosplay practice. Meanwhile, Kurama was tracking Eureka's location. Kireha ordered Kurama to chase after her, but Kotaro stopped her because he wanted to search for Eureka himself. Elsewhere, Eureka and Maki finally met in a secluded area. Maki reminded Eureka that she had already promised not to let her friends attack the apartment room while they were there. On top of that, Maki had created a massive magical barrier to keep other people away from the area. The two of them prepared to fight. Eureka believed she could win the battle in order to protect the room. Maki cast a target-locking spell called Sidewinder toward Eureka. In response, Eureka used a quick cast spell called Multiple Energy Bolt. The two attacks collided violently and exploded at the center. At the very same moment, Kotaro and Sanae rushed toward Eureka's location. Sanae pointed out the area, but unfortunately she could not pass through because an invisible barrier blocked her path. Sanae explained to Kotaro that an unseen wall was stopping her from getting through, and then she quickly pulled him inside. At that moment, Kotaro finally realized that Eureka was not just an ordinary cosplayer. Meanwhile, Eureka and Maki continued exchanging magical attacks. Suddenly, Maki disappeared from Eureka's sight and quickly reappeared behind her, striking unexpectedly and sending Eureka crashing backward. Maki then revealed that her magic specialized in controlling hearts and minds, allowing her to temporarily erase a person's memories. Eureka refused to give up in her fight against Maki because she wanted to protect the residents of Room 106 and earn their trust. Maki admitted that Eureka had become much braver than before. At that moment, Kotaro and Sanae finally found Eureka. Maki was surprised that they had managed to get past the barrier. Unexpectedly, Kotaro told Eureka to go home and head to school instead. He said she could continue her cosplay another time. In Kotaro's eyes, Eureka was just a cosplayer and did not belong in a place like that. Eureka became frustrated because Kotaro still refused to believe that she was truly a magical girl. She explained that Maki was their enemy and that she had to fight her. Maki assumed that Kotaro was some kind of magician who had evolved on Earth and was helping Eureka with his knowledge. She was even surprised that he lived together with a ghost like Sanae. Eureka quickly told Maki that Kotaro and Sanae had nothing to do with the fight, and that she alone would face Maki. Maki also made it clear that she only intended to battle Eureka and had no interest in fighting everyone else. The fight between Maki and Eureka continued, and Eureka was hit by one of Maki's attacks. Maki prepared to finish the battle, but Kotaro managed to save Eureka just in time. Maki was shocked that Kotaro had disrupted her magic without using a wand or any kind of spell. She also became curious about the mysterious white light she had just seen. Kotaro demanded that Maki stop attacking, but suddenly Maki brought Harumi right in front of them. Harumi had no idea what was happening, and her body moved on its own no matter how hard she tried to resist. Kotaro begged Maki to stop because Harumi was physically weak. He pleaded with her not to involve Harumi in the fight. Maki realized that Harumi was not only Eureka's weakness but Kotaro's as well. Maki then used her magic to rain stones down on them. Fortunately, Eureka quickly created a magical barrier that protected everyone and shattered the falling rocks. After witnessing that, Kotaro finally believed that Eureka truly was the rainbow magical girl. Eureka felt overjoyed that Kotaro finally trusted her. Kotaro then asked Eureka to work together with him to save Harumi. Maki launched a highly concentrated fireball attack, and Kotaro was stunned by its power. At that moment, Eureka warned him to be careful because ordinary defensive magic would not be enough to stop it. Kotaro decided to strike first. He asked Sanae to attack Maki together with him from two different directions, while Eureka protected them. Unexpectedly, Maki admitted that she never intended to aim the attack at Kotaro or Sanae. Instead, she had targeted Harumi from the very beginning. The moment Eureka realized that, she immediately stepped in front of Harumi to shield her from the attack. In an instant, Eureka collapsed to the ground. Seeing that happen, Kotaro broke down in tears. Kotaro shouted in panic when he saw Eureka lying there completely helpless. Sanae asked why Maki would do something like that to Eureka. Maki believed that they were trying to protect too many things at once, and because of that, they ended up unable to protect anything at all. Kotaro refused to let Maki lay another hand on Eureka. He swore that he would defeat her. Suddenly, a white light appeared once again. It created a sword and placed it into Kotaro's hands. Even Maki was shocked that Harumi was capable of using magic. Harumi explained that the sword belonged to Kotaro. Right after that, Harumi collapsed, and Sanae quickly rushed over to check on her. Sanae assured everyone that Harumi was fine. Kotaro then raised his sword and prepared himself to defeat Maki. Maki could hardly believe that this was Kotaro's true power. Although she was surprised, she admitted that at least she finally had the chance to test his strength. Maki unleashed a lightning spear spell to force Kotaro back, but he blocked the attack with his sword and completely deflected it. Kotaro immediately leaped toward Maki and attacked her directly. Maki tried to defend herself, but Kotaro's strength was overwhelming, and he managed to throw her to the ground. Maki could not understand what kind of power Kotaro possessed. In the end, she used a cloud of smoke to escape. She realized that she could not defeat Kotaro without the power hidden inside room 106. Not long afterward, Harumi regained consciousness and saw Kotaro standing in front of her. The first thing she asked about was Eureka's condition. At that moment, Eureka was still lying there weak and exhausted. Kotaro told Harumi not to worry because Eureka had only lost consciousness. Harumi asked what had happened because she could not remember anything after Eureka collapsed. Kotaro then realized that Harumi did not remember giving him the sword either. A moment later, Eureka suddenly woke up and Kotaro immediately checked on her condition. Meanwhile, Taemelise and the others were confused about why Kotaro and Sanae still had not returned. Kireha had already tried contacting them, but neither of them could be reached. Kurama offered to go look for them if Taemelise was worried about Kotaro. Taemelise quickly denied it and claimed that she simply wanted to think about the script for their play. As she thought about the ending of the story, Taemelise wondered whether the Blue Knight also loved the Silver Princess. She became convinced that if the Silver Princess and the Blue Knight truly loved each other, then they would probably share a kiss. Her face instantly turned red when she imagined herself kissing Kotaro. Taemelise hurriedly pushed those embarrassing thoughts out of her mind. Still, if that scene really appeared in the play, then she would have to teach Kotaro how the scene should look naturally and convincingly. Taemelise suddenly screamed in embarrassment, leaving Ruth Kania worried about her. Right then, Sanae arrived and told everyone about what had happened earlier. At the same time, Kotaro had already explained everything to Eureka. He asked her to wait until the others arrived because Sanae was currently informing them. However, Eureka said that she did not have time to wait for everyone else. She tried to stand up immediately, but her body was still far too weak. Harumi begged Eureka not to push herself so hard, but Eureka insisted that she would never give up because she was a magical girl of love and courage. She was convinced that Make had already returned to room 106, which was why she needed to go there immediately. However, Kotaro stopped her because her condition was still unstable. He told Eureka to sit down and recover properly. Kotaro promised that he would fight alongside her, but if they rushed into battle before she recovered, then they would never win. Besides that, Kotaro also wanted to ask her about the magic she had used. Meanwhile, Maki had already returned to room 106. It seemed that the sword Kotaro used had been created by controlling the magical power sleeping within the room itself. The power was incredibly strong, even though Kotaro had only used a fraction of it. Maki believed that if she could reproduce the same magic for herself, then she might be able to turn the situation around again. At the same time, Eureka began explaining the magic power she possessed. Somehow she had been born with magical potential. The only thing she clearly remembered was being attacked one day by a savage creature that sensed the magic within her. The person who saved her was Nana, the magical girl. To Eureka, Nana was the person who saved her life. Eureka desperately wanted to repay everything Nana had done for her, so she started helping out at Nana's place. Even though Nana never allowed her to fight, Eureka still helped by handling cooking duties and gathering magical materials. Since Nana came from Fourth Order's magical kingdom of Forsaria, she lacked basic knowledge about everyday life, so Eureka was grateful that she could at least support her in those ways. Forsaria was the name of the kingdom of magic, and Nana was an archwitch who served as a royal soldier of the Forsarian magical kingdom. She was known as the Rainbow Heart Witch and was an incredibly talented magic user. Harumi then asked why Eureka had to be the one fighting now. It turned out that Nana had lost her magic because of Eureka. 8 months earlier, Eureka had been taken hostage by Maki and her allies, who were known as the Rainbow Darkness Witches. Nana suffered severe injuries while protecting Eureka. In order to defeat Maki and the others, Nana used every last bit of magic she had. Kotaro finally understood that this was why Eureka had taken Nana's place. The outfit and staff Eureka used had originally belonged to Nana, and now Eureka carried the responsibility of continuing the work Nana could no longer do. Not long later, Eureka claimed that she had recovered enough and once again asked them to allow her to leave. Meanwhile, Maki was still trying to draw power from room 106. She was confused about why ancient Forsaria magic was also lingering there, and it made her wonder who Kotaro really was. At the same time, Kotaro carried Eureka back toward room 106. Eureka felt an incredible warmth while being carried by him, and she finally began to understand how Sanae must have felt whenever she stayed close to him. Kotaro said that many unusual people surrounded him, and he considered Eureka to be the only completely normal girl among them. He believed that with Eureka around, he might actually be able to spend his 3 years of high school without dealing with anything strange. He honestly admitted that all he had wanted was for Eureka to remain an ordinary classmate, someone with slightly unique hobbies, but still just a normal friend from class. In his opinion, Eureka was not suited for fighting. Kotaro also admitted that he had been wrong for not trusting her. Eureka smiled and said that she did not mind being treated like a cosplayer for more than half a year. Suddenly, Kotaro's phone rang. It was Taemelise asking where he was. At that moment, Maki had finally succeeded in absorbing the magical energy inside room 106. Even though the amount was small, it was high-level magic. With that power, she believed Kotaro's magic would no longer affect her. Maki became confident that she could defeat him. Just then, Kotaro burst into the room and immediately tried to attack Maki, but she quickly dodged. Maki asked whether they really intended to fight inside the room. She then leaped outside and flew upward while Kotaro instantly chased after her. Maki launched an attack toward Kotaro, but he managed to block it. Maki admitted that Kotaro was far more capable than she expected. Maki then created a magic circle and attacked him again, but fortunately Eureka managed to stop the attack. Kotaro came at Maki from above, putting her under serious pressure. Eureka cast a fire enchantment on Kotaro, allowing him to continue attacking, but she warned him to stay careful because Maki's staff was dangerous. Even the slightest contact could cause someone to lose several seconds of memory. Kotaro was shocked to hear that and immediately started keeping his distance from Maki. Eureka then used the spell Extend Length 4 times to reach Maki from farther away. While Maki struggled to avoid the attack, Kotaro rushed in and kicked her. However, Maki trapped Kotaro with her own power. Eureka urgently told Kotaro to run because Maki was controlling the magic from room 106. According to Maki, it was already too late for him to escape. She created a spear of light magic and launched it toward him. Eureka quickly deployed a massive magical barrier in midair, but unfortunately the shield could not withstand Maki's power. Eureka collapsed, weakened from the impact. Maki was surprised that Kotaro had still survived. Eureka pleaded with Kotaro to run because she did not want him getting seriously hurt. Maki aimed her magical spear at them once more, but fortunately Kureha arrived together with Kurama and Kurama. They blocked the attack using the area editor. The magical spear exploded in the air, making Maki even more frustrated, especially after the others also arrived to help Eureka. Eureka felt relieved and happy to see everyone there. Maki could not understand how they managed to arrive. It turned out that Eureka had created a small opening in the barrier Maki had set up earlier. Eureka then asked Maki to surrender. Maki said they were nothing more than a group of weird people gathered together. According to her, blocking one attack did not mean they had won. In response, Taya Malaise ordered her Blue Knight to fire a laser at Maki. Maki quickly raised a protective barrier above herself to stop the laser blast. Ruth Kania commented that Taya Malaise was going too far, but Taya Malaise replied that anyone who hurt her knight would face her full wrath. Maki was shocked that the power she absorbed from the room was only enough to barely match their attacks. Taya Malaise was also surprised that Maki had survived, but she intended to finish the battle. She ordered the Blue Knight to prepare its main cannon attack, though Ruth Kania immediately objected. Taya Malaise declared that Kotaro still had an important role in her future plans, but she refused to forgive any reckless magician who dared to hurt him. Ruth Kania warned that such an attack could destroy the entire apartment room. At that moment, Shizuka demanded to know who had damaged her apartment. Eureka explained that Maki was responsible. The moment she heard that, Shizuka rushed forward and struck Maki with all her strength. Maki was stunned to discover that Kotaro was not the only one with incredible power. Kureha warned Maki to carefully reconsider continuing the fight. Frustrated and cornered, Maki realized she had no remaining options. In desperation, she sacrificed Twilight Wing to erase everyone's memories. After doing so, she successfully escaped. Eureka quickly asked whether anyone had been hurt, but she was shocked to discover that her friends still believed she was only cosplaying. None of them remembered what had happened earlier. The only thing they remembered was studying at school before time suddenly seemed to pass by. Shizuka stared at the damaged roof of her apartment in shock and demanded to know who had caused it. Eureka could not understand why everything had turned out this way. Maki met up with her friends and told them about her battle against Eureka. She warned them to stay careful when dealing with Kotaro. The purple magician explained that they had already analyzed several spells connected to the room and had learned more about their enemies' abilities. She praised Maki for handling the fight so well even before the others had taken action. Maki admitted that she had sacrificed the Twilight Wing in exchange for their memories. The purple magician relied heavily on Maki to gather information about their opponents. After Maki's friends left, she became convinced that she would be the one to defeat Kotaro with her own hands. The next day, Kotaro and Harumi went to the aquarium together. Kotaro laughed when he saw Harumi nervously holding a sea urchin. Meanwhile, Kenji and Eureka tagged along to keep them company during their date. Kenji commented that Kotaro and Harumi acted just like little kids. Eureka felt relieved and happy that Harumi had finally managed to ask Kotaro out, and she noticed that the atmosphere between them seemed different now. Later that afternoon, Kotaro asked Eureka what was wrong because she had been looking upset for quite a while. Eureka explained that she once had a friend who finally understood her, but that understanding had somehow faded away. Kotaro believed that situation must have been painful for her. Eureka then asked what Kotaro would think if she truly were a magical girl, and how she should tell him about it. Kotaro replied that Eureka probably did not need to do anything special. Recently, he had been wondering whether Eureka was simply into cosplay or if she really was a magical girl, but honestly, neither possibility bothered him. Eureka felt confused hearing that because she had been telling the truth the entire time. Kotaro laughed and admitted that he actually did believe her, especially because Eureka had once protected Harumi and ended up hurting herself in the process. To Kotaro, no matter what Eureka truly was, the fact that she helped other people proved that she was a good person. He believed it was rare to find someone willing to risk herself for others, whether that person was a magical girl or just a cosplayer. Because of that, Kotaro chose to trust Eureka when she said she was a magical girl, since her actions had already proven it. Eureka felt deeply moved after hearing Kotaro's words. She finally realized why she admired Harumi so much. Even if she could never become someone like Nana, she could still become the kind of magical girl Harumi believed in. Kotaro admitted that he worried about Eureka whenever she used magic, and part of him thought life might be easier if she were simply an ordinary cosplayer. He then described Eureka as being like the sun and a rainbow. Kotaro and Eureka returned to the aquarium carrying drinks for Kenji and Harumi. Along the way, Kotaro asked how Eureka saw herself. Eureka answered that she was simply Kotaro's classmate and an ordinary girl staying at his place. One day at the Sun Ranger headquarters, the members of the Sun Rangers were gathered together. Kenichi suddenly wondered out loud if their mission might actually be meaningless. Megumi immediately told him not to say things like that. Kotaro admitted that it might be true, but he no longer cared about it. Daisaku explained that their duty was to protect people, and that alone made their work important. Meanwhile, Hayato questioned whether an invasion from the underground inhabitants would really happen at all. Suddenly, the warning alarm went off. At that moment, Dr. Roppongi informed everyone that enemies had arrived and that it was finally time for them to show their strength. Their enemies were the underground inhabitants, people from beneath the surface who were attempting to invade the world above. 3 members of the underground kingdom had appeared on the surface with the goal of taking control. Kenichi immediately became excited and eager to jump into action. One evening, Kireha asked her friends for help participating in a Haruokaze Man and Kishu Lady stage show. Everyone was unfamiliar with those names, although Ruth Kaniya remembered seeing posters about them in the shopping district. Kireha explained that they were local heroes and the youth association connected to the organization had asked for her assistance. Kotaro asked if Kireha personally knew anyone there. Kireha replied that she was helping with the hero show, and because of that, she wanted everyone to take part as performers the following week. Kotaro was shocked to hear that. Kireha explained that the request from the youth association had come very suddenly, so she had been asked to invite friends with acting experience to join the performance. Kotaro found that strange since they had only acted once during the cultural festival. Sanae even pointed out that their acting experience had not been very impressive. According to Kireha, making children happy was much more important than delivering a perfect performance, and Kotaro agreed with her opinion. Taya Miles felt very confident about the task. She believed it was a great opportunity, especially because it would allow her to continue training Kotaro. Kotaro immediately looked terrified and tried to escape, but Taya Miles stopped him. She reminded him that they still needed additional practice for the Blue Knight training. Kireha also mentioned that she had already spoken with Kenji and Harumi. Hearing Harumi's name made Kotaro excited because he would get the chance to act alongside her again. The weekend finally arrived and the Haruokaze Man Hero Show was about to begin. The event was part of Haruokaze Kindergarten's anniversary celebration. The host guided the kindergarten children and encouraged them to call for their hero, Haruokaze Man. The first scene featured Taya Miles, Kotaro, and Kireha appearing as demons from the underground kingdom who claimed they had defeated Haruokaze Man. The children immediately shouted that there was no way Haruokaze Man could lose to them. One child even teased Taya Miles by saying someone so small could never defeat Haruokaze Man. Taya Miles nearly lost her temper after hearing that, but fortunately Sanae reminded her to stay calm. Kotaro, playing the role of the Demon Baron, was instructed to target someone from the audience. He then brought Harumi onto the stage. Kenji demanded that Kotaro release Harumi. When Kotaro heard Kenji referring to Harumi as his girlfriend, he became irritated and shoved him away as part of the act. After the Demon Baron kidnapped the sweet young lady, he called for Jet the Black King, who was being played by Eureka. Eureka quietly wondered why she always ended up playing the role of a horse. The Demon Baron then ordered Jet to carry them to the wedding altar. One of the kindergarten children became confused about why the girl seemed happy to go along with the villain. Some of the children innocently commented that girls sometimes liked mischievous boys. The event host then asked the audience whether Haruokaze Man would be able to rescue the girl. According to the script, the hero was supposed to appear after a burst of white smoke. However, something seemed to have gone wrong because he had still not arrived. Kireha started to feel that something was unusual. The kindergarten children began growing restless and repeatedly asked where Haruokaze Man was. In response, Harumi decided to improvise. She cried out for help, while Kotaro laughed confidently as the Demon Baron, certain that nobody would come to rescue her. Suddenly, 5 Red Sun Rangers appeared and prepared themselves to fight the Demon Baron. Everyone watching was shocked by their sudden arrival. Kotaro could not understand what the 5 identical Red Rangers were doing there. He immediately scolded them, pointing out that a ranger team was not supposed to have members wearing the same color. He then chased them off the stage and called them amateurs. Meanwhile, the host continued guiding the performance while the kindergarten children started looking disappointed with the identical ranger costumes. One of the rangers explained to Kotaro that they all wore the same outfit because of budget limitations. Staying in character as the Demon Baron, Kotaro asked the audience if those were truly the heroes they had called for. The children loudly answered in unison that those rangers were not their heroes at all. Their real hero was Harukaze Man. After the children repeatedly called out Harukaze Man's name, thick white smoke suddenly filled the center of the stage. From within the smoke appeared the pair of heroes everyone had been waiting for, Harukaze Man and Kishu Lady. The Demon Baron immediately approached the heroic duo. At that moment, the 5 Red Rangers finally realized that everything around them was only part of a hero stage performance. Apparently, they had mistaken the situation for a real underground invasion. One of the Red Rangers, Megumi, became completely fascinated by the actor playing the Demon Baron. After the show ended, Kotaro returned the costume he had been wearing. Around the same time, a kindergarten girl named Yachan approached Kiriha and excitedly talked about how amazing Harukaze Man had been. Kiriha felt relieved seeing how happy Yachan looked and how much she had enjoyed the performance. Kiriha then asked why Yachan was by herself, and it turned out that her parents were busy taking care of their shop. Since Kiriha also needed to head to the shopping district, she offered to walk Yachan home along the way. Before leaving, Kiriha asked Kotaro to pass along her thanks to the others. Meanwhile, the rest of the group had gathered backstage. Shizuka explained that they had been delayed because part of the Kishu Lady costume had been torn. The actor playing Harukaze Man apologized for the trouble earlier. Harumi said it was not a big issue, and thankfully everyone had acted quickly enough to handle the situation smoothly. Kenji then asked whether the 5 Rangers had been members of the local youth association, but the actor playing Harukaze Man assumed they were friends of Kiriha. Taya mentioned that even Kiriha herself did not know why the 5 Rangers had appeared. Ruth Kania wondered if they might have been members of a cosplay club. According to Yorika, if they really had belonged to a club, their costumes would probably have looked different. The group became even more curious about the true identities of the 5 Rangers. Not long after that, Kotaro came over and informed everyone that Kiriha had gone to the shopping district. The actor playing Harukaze Man was convinced that Kiriha had joined the volunteer cleanup committee. The cleanup volunteers had participated in the event as well, and their help had been incredibly valuable. Kotaro asked since when such a cleanup volunteer committee had existed, and the actor explained that it had been active for about 6 months already. Later that afternoon, Kotaro and the others walked through the shopping district together. Along the way, they passed groups of people cleaning the streets. They also spotted Kiriha sweeping alongside them. The moment Sanae saw the faces of those people, she immediately pulled Kotaro into a narrow alley. Sanae said the situation looked really serious and that they needed to do something. It turned out the people cleaning the streets were the Earth natives, Kiriha's companions from the underground world. Sanae claimed that the natives had started invading them. Kotaro and the others observed them more carefully, only to realize that they were simply cleaning the area peacefully. Sanae wondered how anyone could possibly carry out an invasion while sweeping the streets, but Taya admitted that she had no idea either. That night, Kotaro, Yorika, and Sanae were all fast asleep while Kiriha remained awake, quietly staring at a card given to her by someone important to her. Kurama and Karama informed her that they had received a message from their leader requesting a mission report. Kiriha then contacted the leader of the Earth natives to report on the progress of her mission. The leader commented that Kiriha's expressions and attitude were becoming more and more like her mother's. Kiriha proceeded to explain the status of Plan A. The gradual integration plan had already reached stage 2, where she had successfully joined the local youth association and had been warmly accepted by the people in the neighborhood. Up to that point, everything had been progressing smoothly. As for Plan B, Kiriha admitted that she was still facing some difficulties, just as she had reported before. Corona House Room 106, their target location, had also become the target of several other groups besides their own. Even so, because Plan A was going well, they were not overly worried about the situation surrounding Plan B. The leader agreed with Kiriha's assessment, but there was still a serious issue involving Tayuma, who continued insisting on a faster way to complete the mission. According to Tayuma, Plan B could speed things up considerably. Hearing that, Kiriha pointed out that Tayuma was essentially suggesting that they seize Room 106 through forceful means. Afterward, the leader asked whether Kiriha was willing to return home and get married. The leader believed that such a marriage might strengthen unity among their people and possibly influence Tayuma as well. It would also provide Kiriha with a safe place to stay. Unfortunately, Kiriha admitted that she still could not accept the idea. The next day, Harumi could not stop thinking about Kotaro while sitting in the clubroom. Suddenly, Kotaro appeared and asked what had put her in such a cheerful mood. Harumi looked embarrassed and admitted that yesterday's performance had been really enjoyable. Kotaro agreed, mentioning that the kindergarten children had genuinely loved the show. According to him, the results of that performance felt very different compared to the cultural festival. Harumi explained that it was probably because they had performed as representatives of the local youth association, making their efforts feel more meaningful since they were helping the people of the town directly. She even felt as though she had become part of the town herself. Hearing that reminded Kotaro about Kiriha and the Earth natives cleaning the streets the previous day. Kotaro admitted that he actually wanted to take part in another hero show someday. Surprisingly, Harumi said that she wanted to participate in the action scenes next time as well. Kotaro then cheered her up by playfully acting out the roles of the Blue Knight and the Demon Baron. That afternoon, Sanae and Eureka rushed out of school so they could quickly watch Magical Girl Love from the Heart. Both of them were so excited that they sprinted right past Kotaro. Meanwhile, Kotaro ran into Kiriha while she was shopping at a store and he asked why she was not together with Ruth Kaniya. Kiriha explained that Tayamalaise was busy working on a script with the theater club because she was extremely enthusiastic about the continuation of The Silver Princess and The Blue Knight. Ruth Kaniya was there to keep an eye on Tayamalaise, so Kiriha ended up shopping alone. Hearing that, Kotaro offered to help carry her groceries. When they stopped by the vegetable stand, Yachan's father thanked Kiriha for escorting Yachan safely home the other day. At the fish stand, the shopkeeper jokingly mentioned that Kiriha had come with her boyfriend. After that, Kiriha bought some tea and visited a takoyaki stand. The owner thanked her for helping clean up before, and in return, he gave her some takoyaki. Once they finished shopping, Kiriha and Kotaro sat together on a park bench and talked for a while. Kotaro admitted that there was something he wanted to ask her. He had been wondering if Kiriha had really come to the surface to carry out an invasion. Kiriha asked why he would suddenly think something like that. Kotaro explained that she had helped with cleaning the previous day and had also assisted with the hero show. To him, it felt more like she was trying to become part of the town itself. Kotaro said he had kept thinking about it, and after a while, everything started to make sense. In his opinion, Kiriha was simply too kind for someone planning an invasion. Kiriha responded by pointing out that it could also mean she was trying to gain his trust. Back when they first met, she had already said something similar, and Kotaro realized that teasing him had been part of her approach all along. Kotaro admitted that he could be pretty clueless, so he had never taken it too seriously. Then Kotaro wondered aloud if maybe Kiriha actually did not want him to trust her. Hearing that question caught Kiriha off guard. A moment later, she suddenly asked him to make time for her the next day because she wanted to take him somewhere. The next day, before they left, Kiriha prepared the clothes and equipment Kotaro would need. Their friends reminded them to be careful while they were out. As soon as Kiriha and Kotaro left, everyone immediately started talking about them. They suspected the two of them were going on a date, and Shizuoka could not even remember when Kiriha and Kotaro had become so close. Eureka insisted that this situation could not be ignored because, in her opinion, Kotaro should have been spending time with Harumi instead. Sanae was convinced that Kiriha must have been planning something, while Tayamalaise asked Ruth Kaniya to track Kiriha's location. It turned out that Kiriha and Kotaro were heading toward the train station. The others quickly prepared to follow them, although Shizuoka could not come because she had work to do. Soon afterward, Tayamalaise, Ruth Kaniya, Eureka, and Sanae all headed to the station to tail Kiriha and Kotaro. At the same time, the Sun Rangers were gathered at their base. Kotaro still looked confused because the detection device had confirmed the presence of underground inhabitants. Daisaku explained that the machine used movement detection technology, so there was always a chance it could malfunction. Kenichi, however, had started doubting whether the underground inhabitants were really planning to attack the surface. Daisaku felt that Kenichi might have been losing his determination, and he told him that he should try absorbing some positive energy from Megumi instead. Meanwhile, Megumi still could not stop thinking about how handsome the actor playing the Demon Baron had been. She found herself wishing she could see his dramatic performance again. Suddenly, another emergency alert appeared. Dr. Roppongi informed everyone that the signal this time was much stronger than before, making it highly likely that the underground inhabitants were truly preparing to launch an attack on the surface.